Chapter 24:14. Is that so? Why don't I remember? She glanced at him. Although I don't know why you approached me, I can't tolerate people with ulterior motives by my side. If you have ulterior motives, it's best if you leave as soon as possible and stay far away from me. Otherwise, if you fall into my hands one day, I won't be merciful. Ishiran sighed softly and said ambiguously, aren't you being too guarded against others? What ulterior motives could I have? Firstly, I don't seek wealth, secondly, fame, and thirdly, I don't seek power. If I really have any ulterior motives, then it would be towards you. Who asked you to be so pleasing to the eye? I heard from Lang Hua and the others that you've been living here for a long time. Since that's the case, you should know who I am and what relationship I have with the Ling residents next door. Therefore, I'll give you a piece of advice, don't have ulterior motives. I was just speaking casually. Moreover, with my strength, cultivation base, and temperament, how could I be someone who only cares about appearances? He scoffed and said, oh right, when I returned this time, I heard a piece of news. Seeing that she didn't even have the intention to ask, he couldn't help but glare. It's related to the demons. Fengjiu paused and looked at him. Demons? He lowered his voice and said with a grave expression, that's right, it's demons. I heard that demons released news that they're going to flatten the 4 great immortal sects in a few days because the demon lord, who hasn't appeared in 100 years, is coming out. Fengjiu frowned. Is the news reliable? Of course. Fengjiu pursed his lips and turned to Ling Shuang. Go. Have someone investigate what he said. Immediately report to me when you get the news. Yes, Ling Shuang responded and quickly turned to leave. Yi Shiran pursed his lips. You don't believe me. If you don't believe me, why are you asking me? Fengjiu glanced at him and said, this matter is of great importance. Naturally, I can't just listen to your side of the story. As she spoke, she walked forward. Yi Shiran snorted and walked beside her, occasionally saying a few words. When they arrived at the courtyard, he saw her suddenly stop and couldn't help but ask, what's wrong? Fengjiu looked at him strangely and said, I should be the one asking you what's wrong. I'm going to take a bath. Do you want to follow me? Hearing this, a trace of uneasiness flashed across Yi Shiran's face. Under her strange gaze, he coughed lightly and looked at her with a scorching gaze, revealing a frivolous expression as he said, if you invite me, I don't mind going with. What are you doing? Before he could finish his words, he was kicked away by the other party. His body flew more than 10 meters away in an instant. Keep watch. If this person dares to break into the courtyard, cut off his penis. Fengjiu's cold voice rang out. She then turned and entered the courtyard, leaving behind 2 cultivators to guard the courtyard. The 2 cultivators guarding the courtyard looked at Yi Shiran and slowly moved their gazes down to his crotch. They asked, do you want to try breaking in? Their expressions were somewhat expectant. Yi Shiran's mouth twitched. After steadying himself, he flicked his robes and said, I'll wait in the front courtyard. If you want to try, go ahead. Cut off his penis. TSK, this woman doesn't have any scruples with her words. In any case, she's a woman, isn't she? Chapter 24:15. After taking a bath, Fengjiu went to Zhua Junyua's courtyard. When he entered, he saw Zhua Junyang reading a book. Where's your brother? Sister Feng. Zhua Junyang smiled and called out to her. He closed the book in his hand and said, my brother just went out. He'll be back soon. Hearing this, she nodded and walked forward to sit by the table. I've already refined the medicine. There are 10 pills in here. Take 1 pill every 3 days. Take one and consume it first. She handed him a bottle. Xue Junhua took it with both hands and poured out a fragrant pill. He swallowed it. As soon as the pill entered his throat, he felt the fragrance of the medicine spread in his throat and spread to his stomach. Have a cup of water. She poured a cup of water and handed it to him. Thank you. Xue Junhua took a sip and saw his brother walking in from outside the courtyard. He called out, "Big brother, Sister Feng brought the medicine." Feng Jiu turned around and said, "You came just in time. Come and take care of him. You just have to help him change his medicine in the future." Xue Junhua nodded and walked over to them. He pushed his wheelchair-bound brother into the room. Feng Jiu followed behind. When they entered the room, Xue Junhua was already leaning against the head of the bed with his legs stretched out. She took out the medicine from her space and demonstrated it to them as she instructed them. This was the first time she bandaged him. She wanted them to understand. In the future, Xue Junhua would change the medicine for his brother. "How is it? Have you memorized the steps?" She wrapped the medicine in a cloth and tied a knot as she asked them. "Got it." The two of them replied. "Here are 10 jars of ointment. Change the ointment once every 3 days. It's almost time to use up all these ointment. In addition, I just gave Junyang a bottle of pills. Take 1 pill every 3 days. There's also a new prescription for a medicinal bath. He has to take it every day." She placed everything on the table as she instructed. "Do as I say. If you're fast, you'll recover in a few months. If you're slow, it'll take more than half a year. In addition, for half a month after taking the medicine and applying the plaster, you have to get up and walk for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn every morning and evening." "All right." Xue Junhua responded and put away the things on the table. He took the prescription and looked at it, saying, "I'll go get the herbs later." Feng Jiu nodded and said to the two, "I have a lot of things to do recently, especially my brother's matter, so I might not be able to take care of you." "Sister Feng, my brother will take care of me. You don't have to worry," Xue Junyang said. If you need anything, just look for Lang Hua and the others." After she said that, she said to the two of them, "I'll be leaving first." The moment she left the courtyard, she saw Yi Xiuran leaning against a nearby tree and looking at her. When she saw him, she raised a brow. "Is something the matter? Can't I find you for no reason?" Yi Xiuran walked over and asked, "What do you plan to do next? Do you need my help with anything?" Feng Jiu's eyes flickered. She looked at him and asked, "You're not leaving? Are you planning to stay?" Chapter 24:16. Hearing this, Feng Jiu stopped and said, "Since you've said that, I do have something that I need your help with. Moreover, it's something that no one else can do besides you." "Oh. What is it?" Yi Xiuran's eyes sparkled as he stared fixedly at her. Feng Jiu smiled. "Follow me." Then, he strode forward. 30 minutes later, Yi Xiuran left mysteriously with the special mission Feng Jiu gave him. Other than Feng Jiu, no one else knew what the mission was. After he left, Feng Jiu, Mo Qin, Hunyuan Zi, and the others discussed the matter of the Demon Master's appearance. "I didn't expect Yi Xiuran to be so well informed. I only just received the news." As Hunyuan spoke, he stroked his beard and looked at Feng Jiu. "This Yi Xiuran definitely isn't an ordinary person based on his bearing and strength. He claims to be an itinerant cultivator, but I think he must have some ulterior motive for hiding his identity." Feng Jiu smiled. "I already had someone investigate his identity when I went back to save Xue Junhua. Don't worry. He doesn't need to care too much." "Oh. You even investigated?" "I heard from Lang Hua and the others that they couldn't find any information about him." "You actually know his background? How did you find out?" the old man asked with interest. Feng Jiu glanced at him and said with a spurious smile, "I can even find out about your past affairs." Do you want to try? Hearing this, the old man smiled embarrassedly and waved his hand. Forget it. What romantic affairs do I have? Let's not talk about things that don't matter. Let's not talk about these unimportant things. Come, let's talk about this demon master. Seeing this, the surrounding people pursed their lips and smiled. It seemed that Hunyuan really did have a romantic past. Mo-chan sipped his tea. The demon master hasn't come out for more than 100 years. Now that news of him coming out has spread, all the sects and clans are nervous and worried. They're starting to take precautions. However, I heard that he'll attack the 4 major immortal sects first. That's right. I also heard from Yi Shiran that he'll attack the 4 major immortal sects first. I think he wants to intimidate everyone and show his strength to the various factions so that they'll be terrified. Fengzhou nodded and paused. If even the 4 major immortal sects are destroyed, then what else is there to say about the other factions? If he succeeds, the continent will descend into chaos. Then what do you plan to do? Mo-chan looked at her. I'm afraid this matter is definitely related to you. Moreover, the only person who can protect this continent and the 4 major immortal sects is you. Hunyuan nodded. That's right. You're the Phoenix Star and have such strength now. You have many experts under you. If we're talking about fighting the demons, then you're the only one in the entire continent. Moreover, I received news from my sect that they're asking for your help. I reckon that the other immortal sects will come looking for you soon. Chapter 24:17. What do you mean? The 4 major immortal sects are all in different places. Before we know which immortal sect the demons plan to attack first, what's the use of being anxious? Fengzhou said, right now, other than letting the 4 major immortal sects be on their guard, we also need to send people to find out which immortal sect the demons will attack first. Hearing this, everyone fell silent. It was not difficult to find out the demons' whereabouts, but it was difficult to find out which immortal sect they would attack first. After all, they could also confuse them. The distance between each immortal sect was not close, and by the time they found out, distant water would not be able to put out a nearby fire. Do you have any ideas? Mo-chan looked at Fengzhou and asked. Fengzhou played with the teacup in front of him and said, before we know which immortal sect they will attack, I don't have any ideas. She paused and looked at the old man. For now, you can go back to the sect first. If something really happens, one more person to protect you will be safer. If that's the case, then I'll go back first. If there's any movement, I'll contact you. As the old man spoke, he didn't linger here any longer. He stood up and said, help me tell that blockhead that I'm leaving first. He tossed a jade tablet to Fengzhou, and said, do you know how to use this to transmit sound? Be careful on the road. Fengzhou said. Hunyuan did not care. Are you worried that someone will ambush me on the road? Even if there is, it's the others who should be careful. He waved his hand and said, I'm leaving. With that, he flew into the sky on his sword. Duan Yi and the others have been called back to the sect? Fengzhou asked, looking at Lang Hua and Du Fan. The few of them sent news that they were originally heading towards the Heaven Pill building, but halfway there, they received a summons from the sect, so they all rushed back. Not only them, the 4 great immortal sects have all summoned their disciples back to prepare for battle. Du Fan looked at Fengzhou and said, moreover, the news of the demons has spread, and all the forces outside have become nervous. These 2 days, the Heavenly Pill building's pill business has become more and more popular. Many people have come to ask for medicine, and now there's not much stock left. Tell the people in the pill room not to worry about other things, continue to refine pills. In addition, strengthen the Heavenly Pill building's defenses. As Fengzhou spoke, a wisp of dim light flashed through her clear eyes. As for other matters, let's not bother about him for now. Yes. Lang Hua and Du Fan replied, glancing at each other before retreating to the side. Her gaze fell on the 8 captains of the Phoenix Guards, and she said, "Pass down the order, have the Phoenix Guards pay attention to the movements of the demons. Remember, stay hidden and don't act rashly." "Yes," the 8 people replied. "I haven't seen Hui Lang and Ying Yi for a long time. Are they still in charge of the Yen Palace? Didn't they return to the Ling residence?" She asked again. "The 2 of them have been in the Yen Palace. Because the Yama Lord is not here, there are many things for them to deal with. A few days ago, they received news that Master had returned. They said that they would come back to see Master after dealing with the matters at hand." Fengjiu nodded and waved for them to leave. Everyone bowed and then left. Only Fengjiu, Mo Qin, and Leng Hua were left in the large courtyard. Chapter 24:18. Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and looked at him. "What's the matter?" "I also received a message from Master asking me to go back. I might have to leave tomorrow." He spoke slowly, his gentle gaze falling on her face. "I'll come back as soon as possible to help you." Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and said, Go ahead. You don't have to worry about me here." The 2 sat in the courtyard for a while and chatted for a while. Then Mo Chen got up and left. After they both left, Fengjiu also began to plan the next step, because the news that the Demon Lord was going to destroy the 4 immortal sects spread. All the forces were busy being on guard, as if chaos was coming. However, 2 small figures took advantage of the chaos and quietly went down the mountain. On the small path in the mountain forest, Feng Yi and Zhao Yang walked step by step with their short legs. One of them followed them quietly, paying attention to the surrounding movements vigilantly, while the other looked innocent, with a pair of phoenix-like eyes overflowing with unconcealable joy. Yang, do you think we can find my niece?" Feng Yi, who was now 6 or 7 years old, had grown a little taller, but his delicate little face had not changed. Especially when he said the word niece in his tender voice, it gave people a strange feeling. Zhao Yang, who was a few years older than him, already had the appearance of a young boy. He carried a sword on his back, wore an inconspicuous blue robe, and even hid a dagger in his boots. The 2 sneaked out of the mountain in order to find Fengjiu. "I heard a senior brother say that the princess is in the Heavenly Pill building in 100 River City. As long as we go there, we should be able to find her," Zhao Yang said, his small appearance showing a resolute appearance. Compared to Feng Yi, who seemed to be ignorant of worldly affairs, he appeared more mature and experienced. Yang, do you think my niece will recognize us?" "What if she doesn't recognize us?" Feng Yi frowned and asked worriedly. "The princess will recognize us." As Zhao Yang said, he was still paying attention to the movements around. There was no smile on his taut little face, only seriousness. Yang, we've been walking for a long time. I'm so tired. Why don't we use a magic weapon to fly?" Feng Yi said and pulled Zhao Yang's sleeve. "No." Zhao Yang refused. "We are just children, and there is no one around to protect us. If we take out our magic weapons, it will be easy to get killed." He looked at Feng Yi with a serious and solemn expression. "Master, you promised me that you would listen to me when you go down the mountain." I know. But I'm so tired. We've been walking the whole way." Feng Yi pouted and pointed at his boots. "Look, my boots are worn out. My feet must have blisters." "Then take a break," Zhao Yang said and took him to sit down on the grass. He took out something to eat and handed it to him. "Eat a little." "Okay." Feng Yi took the dry food and ate it. He also drank a few mouthfuls of water. The 2 of them rested here for a while. Suddenly, they heard the sound of fighting in the forest. Feng Ye's eyes couldn't help but light up. Yang, there's the sound of weapons. Let's go." Before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Zhao Yang. Chapter 24:19. Let's just take a peek. Nothing will happen. Feng Yi pouted and said with a look of reluctance. No. Zhao Yang had his own insistence. He was not swayed and pulled him forward. Let's go. We can't stay here for long. Seeing this, Feng Yi could only suppress his curiosity and followed him to leave quickly. Although he was curious about that matter, he also knew that they really couldn't do anything with their fighting capacity. It was more important to protect themselves and keep themselves alive than to care about others. The two of them walked faster and faster. Gradually, the sounds of fighting could no longer be heard. They walked along the small path and finally saw a small village before the sky turned dark. Let's go there and stay overnight. We'll leave tomorrow. When Feng Yi saw the small village, he became cheerful. We brought a small tent. Zhao Yang said. He was more willing to sleep in his small tent than in the small village. Yang, it's a small village. It won't be dangerous. Let's go. Feng Yi knew what he was worried about, so he pulled him and ran to the small village. Uncle, can we stay overnight? Feng Yi looked like a little adult and asked a man who opened the door. When the man opened the door, he was stunned. He looked at the two children in front of him and looked behind them. He asked, only the two of you? Where are your parents? Feng Yi smiled and squinted his eyes. He looked at the man in front of him and said, Uncle, only the two of us. Our parents didn't follow us. I see. Then come in. The man's eyes flashed slightly. He opened the door and let them in. Zhao Yang saw the man's eyes move slightly. He frowned slightly, but he still said nothing and followed Feng Yi into the house. After entering, he looked around vigilantly. He saw that the simple house was connected to the front and back. It seemed that there was only one man in the house. Uncle, do you have food in your house? Can you get some for us? We can pay you. As Feng Yi spoke, he sat upright at the table like a little adult. His eyes narrowed as he smiled at the burly man whose eyes lit up when he heard the word money. He said, Uncle, are you the only one in your family? When the big man heard that they had money, he cut the sauced meat that he had prepared to go with the wine and served it to them. He also prepared 2 bowls of rice for them and made a vegetable soup for them. Sitting at the side, the big man secretly sized up the 2 children, especially when his gaze fell on Feng Yi. He scrutinized him even more. Where are you from? Why are there 2 children traveling alone? Uncle, we didn't travel alone. Feng Yi said innocently, my father told us to come out and experience hardships, but let me tell you. He lowered his voice and approached the big man with a mysterious look. My father sent very powerful people to protect us. They are watching from the dark. Hearing this, the burly man was shocked. He jumped up from the chair and looked around in panic, but he didn't see anything. He was an idle man. He didn't do anything serious on weekdays. Seeing the 2 children appear here by themselves with such delicate appearances, he thought that they should be worth a lot of money if he caught them and sold them. But he didn't expect. Chapter 24:20. Looking at the big man's panicked expression, Feng Yi blinked at Zhao Yang. Then he picked up the bowl and ate the rice. He also picked up some sauced meat with vegetable soup and ate a hot meal full of steaming hot rice. Under the guidance of the tough man, they went to a room in the back to have a rest. Even after Feng Yi and Zhao Yang entered the room to have a rest, the tough man still looked around from time to time, trying to see where the person hiding in the dark was. It was no wonder that he believed the words of the 2 children. It was because the older one was wearing an inconspicuous green robe, which was simple like a playmate or a manservant. The younger one was delicate and the robe material on his body was also excellent. Moreover, he was young and noble. He should be a child of a rich family. Who would believe that there were no adults following and guarding such two young people when they came out? It must be as the child said. His father wanted him to suffer and gain experience, so he asked someone to protect them in the dark. Thinking of this, he secretly wiped his cold sweat and quietly retreated. He didn't dare to have any ideas about the two children. That night, the two children slept well. After they had enough energy, they got up the next morning and were ready to continue their journey. When they came outside, they saw the man eating pancakes. They sat at the table and each took one to eat. The man glanced at them and asked, "Little child, when are you leaving?" "We'll leave in a while." Feng Yi said, took a bite of the pancake, swallowed it, and asked, "Uncle, how far is it from here to the market?" "It's not far. If you leave after eating, you can probably reach the market at noon." The man picked up another pancake and ate it. He didn't forget to say, "Little child, you said that you would give me some money." "Well, I didn't forget." Feng Yi handed him a gold coin that he had prepared. "This is for you." Seeing it was a gold coin, the man's eyes lit up. He was more and more convinced that the two children were from a noble family. Otherwise, how could ordinary children take out a gold coin casually? He immediately grinned and narrowed his eyes. Good, good, good. You guys can eat as much as you want. If it's not enough, I'll go make a few more for you guys." As he said this, he happily put away the gold coin. Feng Ye's tender and delicate little face had an innocent smile. He said to the big man, "Uncle, there's no need. We'll be leaving in a while." When he saw this, the burly man didn't insist. Instead, he looked at the two of them and said, "Young master, I'm going to the market in the city to buy some things later. Why don't I give you a ride?" Upon hearing this, Feng Ye's eyes lit up. "You have a carriage." Horse carriage." "Hee, you can say that." He laughed embarrassedly. Seeing this, Feng Yi looked at Xiao Yang and said, Yang, let's take uncle's car to the city." "Okay." Xiao Yang nodded his head in response. After finishing the pancake, he took out a small handkerchief and wiped his mouth. "Okay, then sit down first and drink a glass of water. I'll go and drag the carriage out," the burly man said and walked out first. Not long after, Feng Yi and Xiao Yang came out. When they saw the so-called carriage, the corners of their mouths twitched a few times. It was an ox carriage. An old ox was pulling a flat two-wheeled carriage. It looked very simple and crude. Yang, let's walk there by ourselves," Feng Yi said with a serious face. "Okay." Xiao Yang also responded. The two of them walked to the other side together. Chapter 24-21. However, what responded to him was the sound of Feng Yi and Xiao Yang's conversation as they walked further and further away. Along the way, the two of them competed with each other in speed. Originally, they would have arrived at noon, but the two of them took more than an hour to arrive. Looking at the city gate in front of them, Feng Yi raised his delicate little face and said, Yang, this city looks quite big. Why don't we go to the city and ask a group of mercenaries to escort us to 100 River City? This way, we won't have to worry about encountering danger on the way." "Okay." As long as the decision wasn't too reckless, Xiao Yang mostly agreed with Feng Ye's ideas. "Then let's go buy some dry food to eat on the way. We didn't bring much with us. Moreover, we have to buy some meat. We are still growing and must eat well. Otherwise, we won't be able to grow tall in the future," Feng Yi said excitedly and skipped forward. Xiao Yang followed behind him. The two of them walked around the city and bought some dry food and some spiced beef to put in the space. Then, they inquired about the location of the mercenary guild in the city. After circling around, the two of them arrived in front of the mercenary guild. Seeing some mercenaries there, the two of them walked forward. However, before they could enter, they were stopped. Go go go, this isn't a place for children. Go play elsewhere. A mercenary with a scar on his face shouted in a rough voice and waved his hand to chase away Feng Yi and Zhao Yang. We're not here to play, we're here to issue a mission. Feng Yi showed his signature smile and looked at the mercenary in front of him with a harmless face. Hearing this, the surrounding mercenaries laughed loudly. Oh. 2 little kids are here to issue a mission. Tell us, what kind of mission do you want to issue? Don't tell me you want us to help you find your mother. Ha 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 ha. Those people laughed out loud. They all thought that these 2 children were here to play, and no one took their words to heart. Zhao Yang's face was tense. He quietly looked at the mercenaries who were laughing at them and pursed his lips without saying anything. Feng Yi smiled and squinted his eyes, as if he didn't hear them. He said with an innocent face, "You guys aren't the people from the Mercenary Association who are issuing missions. Why should I tell you guys about the mission I want to issue?" He took Zhao Yang and walked inside. A man wanted to stop them, but he heard a young voice with a serious tone. "I want to issue a task. You have no right to stop me." Looking at the serious expression on Xiao Budian's face, the man was stunned for a moment. Just as he was about to say something, he saw that the 2 of them had already entered the guild. All he heard was the sound of the surrounding mercenaries laughing. "You actually let the 2 children say that you don't have the right to stop them. Ha ha ha, Lin Hu, you're too weak." The man named Lin Hu lightly snorted. Seeing that the 2 children had already entered, he didn't say anything else. Instead, he found a place to sit down, wanting to see what kind of mission the 2 children would give him. In the guild, an old man looked at the 2 children and asked again with a strange expression, "Young master, are you sure you want to do this?" "Yes, yes. Send it like this." Little Feng Yi nodded with a serious expression. Chapter 24-22. It doesn't matter. We're employers, and employers can choose their own people. He was clearly a 6 or 7-year-old child, but the words he said and the serious expression on his face made the old man slightly surprised. Indeed, they were employers, and as long as they could afford the commission, they had the right to choose their own people. Thus, the old man nodded. "All right then. Little lord, please sit for a moment. I'll post the mission." As the old man spoke, he had someone lead the 2 children inside to sit for a while, and then he had a man post the mission on the mission board outside. When they saw the newly posted mission, the mercenaries waiting outside all gathered around, but when they saw the description of the mission, their expressions became strange. It's really those 2 children. They actually said that they want to pick people? So those 2 children are going to 100 Rivers City. The distance from here to 100 Rivers City is quite far, and it hasn't been very peaceful recently. Although it's an idle job, this round trip will probably take 1 or 2 months. But the commission is quite high, and they're paying half of it now. They're quite generous. I really didn't expect such young children to be so rich. No wonder they said they needed someone to escort them. The mercenaries outside were discussing. Because the commission was indeed high, many people gathered around to say that they wanted to accept the mission. However, they were faced with a group of mercenaries standing in rows, waiting for the 2 little brats to choose. The old man came before Feng Yi and said with a smile, "Young master, the commission you offered is generous. Many mercenary groups are fighting to take on this mission of yours. They are already waiting outside. Go take a look and see which group has caught your eye." "Okay." Feng Yi responded crisply, his little face full of smiles, but he imitated others by putting his hands behind his back and walking with his 2 short legs, causing the old man to chuckle. When the mercenary groups outside saw the child come out, they all pulled themselves together and puffed out their chests, showing their awe-inspiring side. Feng Yi walked past those people. Sometimes he would frown, sometimes he would shake his head, and sometimes he would mutter softly. In the end, he walked around in a circle, but there was not a single group that caught his eye. The old man found it strange and asked, "Little Lord, what do you think?" "None of them are good enough. I don't like it." As Feng Yi spoke, his childish voice was neither loud nor soft, but it was clearly heard by everyone, causing the faces of all the mercenaries to darken. The old man was stunned for a moment before he asked with a smile, "They are all first-rank mercenary teams. They were all selected according to your rules. Their fighting strength is the best among all the mercenaries." "That's right. Don't talk nonsense if you don't know anything." A mercenary snorted, expressing his dissatisfaction. Fengjiu blinked innocently. "I didn't say that you guys are weak. I'm just saying that you guys can't do it because I don't like you guys." The corners of everyone's mouths twitched. What kind of lousy reason was that? However, when they saw the child's serious expression, they really didn't know what to say. Feng Yi looked as if he had discovered a new continent. He curiously looked at the group of mercenaries sitting in the corner not far away. He walked over with his short legs and stared at them. He tilted his head and asked, "You guys didn't accept the mission?" Chapter 24-23. The man looked at Feng Yi and said in a hoarse voice, "We are only second-class mercenaries, not first-class mercenaries. We can't accept your mission." "It doesn't matter, I find you pleasing to the eye," little Feng Yi said with a smile. As soon as he said this, the surroundings went silent. Even the mercenaries who were waiting for him to pick stared at him and secretly cursed, "Is there something wrong with this kid's eyes? He actually said that he found a person with half his face disfigured was pleasing to the eye." The mercenaries who were seated were stunned for a moment. It took them a while to react to what the child in front of them was saying. They all looked at their leader at the same time. Seeing this, the man stood up and said, "Since you don't mind that we are second-class mercenaries, then we, the Thunderfire mercenary team, are willing to accept your mission." As he said this, his voice paused and he said to Feng Yi, "I am the captain of the Thunderfire mercenary team, Su Yan. My team has 12 brothers and they are all at the Golden Core stage. Only I am a nascent soul stage cultivator." Hearing this, Feng Yi nodded, "Okay, it's you guys. Come with me. Let's go through the procedures," he said to Su Yan and entered the guild with him. The guild's old man shook his head and smiled. He helped them with the procedures and watched as Feng Yi gave half of the commission to the Thunderfire mercenary team. "Little Lord, how should I address you?" Su Yan looked at Feng Yi and asked. "My surname is Xiao," Feng Yi said crisply. Because he knew that the surname Feng was an extremely rare surname, if he said it out loud, it might cause trouble, so he said Yang Yang's surname. "So it's Little Lord Xiao." He nodded and said, "Little Lord Xiao can go to the inn and wait for us. We will go to the inn to find you after we deal with the matter." "Okay." Feng Yi nodded in response. He wasn't worried that they would take the money and run away. On this day, Feng Yi and Zhao Yang rested in the inn. In the afternoon and evening, the Thunderfire mercenary team also came according to the order. They waited outside Feng Yi and Zhao Yang's room and the inn, and began their escort mission. The next morning, after eating, the group left the city gate. However, when they were outside the city gate, Feng Yi stopped in his tracks. "Captain Su, since you've cultivated to this level, you must have a flying magic tool. Wouldn't it be faster to carry the two of us?" An innocent smile appeared on his delicate little face. His almond-shaped eyes narrowed as he looked at the boorish man beside him. Hearing this, the members of the Thunderfire mercenary team were slightly startled, then they laughed softly. Su Yan even smiled and said, "I originally thought that you guys were going to walk. Since that's the case, we'll fly you on our swords. If that's the case, we should be able to reach 100 River City in about half a month." "All right," Feng Yi responded. He looked at Xiao Yang and said a few words to him. After Su Yen summoned his flying sword, he jumped onto his sword and stood in front of him. Zhao Yang was also carried by a member of the Thunder Fire mercenary team. The others followed on their flying swords. The group of people headed in the direction of Hundred River City. On the other side, Guan Shilin, who had crossed the mountains, escaped from the forest in a sorry state. However, after leaving the forest and crossing several mountains, he rarely met anyone along the way. He didn't know where he was. Chapter 24-24. He plucked wild fruits to satisfy his hunger. After climbing over a mountain and seeing a stream, he took off his clothes, took a bath, and changed his clothes. He felt much more comfortable. I wonder where this place is. I haven't returned for so long. How anxious must they be? He muttered, then sighed. It's been so long. I wonder if Xiaozhou has returned. Trapped inside, he had no idea what was going on in the outside world. However, he still felt somewhat lucky that he was able to escape. After all, it wasn't easy to escape from the demon's territory. Putting away the broadsword in his hand, he flew forward on his 8-trigram frisbee, preparing to find a place to gather information. Several days later, Yixiuran carried the item Fengzhou gave him and personally delivered it to a person called Renxiang. After much difficulty, he found Renxiang's courtyard according to Fengzhou's instructions. He knocked on the door, and an old man opened it. "Young master, who are you looking for?" "I'm looking for Renxiang," Yixiuran said. As Yixiuran spoke, he saw that the old man was sizing him up and on guard, so he said, "Fengzhou told me to come. Is he here? I have something to give him." The old man bowed. "I've been rude. Young master, please enter." The old man welcomed Yixiuran inside and invited him to sit in the front hall before inviting Renxiang in. Renxiang was surprised to hear the news. He brought the twins to the front hall and smiled when he saw the person in the hall. "I'm Renxiang. How should I address your excellency?" "Yixiuran," he said, sizing up Renxiang. "I heard the ghost physician has something for your excellency to give to me." Renxiang asked with a smile, calmly letting him size him up. "And, it's here." He took out a letter from his space. "Fengzhou said this is a very important secret and told me to give it to you." A man standing next to Renxiang took it and handed it to him before standing to the side. Seeing that it was a sealed letter, Renxiang said to Yixiuran, "Please sit for a moment." As he spoke, he got up and walked to the back. After opening the watermark, he saw that there was a letter inside. He was slightly surprised and read it first. When he read the contents of the letter, his expression changed slightly and he could not help but reveal an inexplicable smile. Not long after, he returned to the front hall and asked, "Did the ghost doctor say anything to you when young Master Yi came?" Yixiuran glanced at him and said, "She instructed you to do what she asked you to do well. Just follow the letter and don't make any mistakes." Hearing this, Renxiang nodded and said with a smile, "This is the inner part of the letter, the outer part is for me, and the inner part is for you, young Master Yi." As he spoke, Renxiang passed the letter to Yi Tianyun, "Young Master Yi, please take a look." "For me?" Yixiuran was taken aback. "She even sent me a letter. Why didn't she tell me?" He was slightly surprised and found it a little strange, but he still took the letter and opened it. However, when he opened it, he saw only one sentence. Thus, he couldn't help but read it out loud, "She prepared a gift for you." Taken aback, he looked at Renxiang and asked, "What does this mean? Why did she say she prepared a gift for me? What gift? Didn't she say it was some confidential document?" Chapter 24-25. His expression was dark, and his gaze was as cold and sharp as a bloodthirsty leopard's as he stared at Renxiang. "What did you do?" His figure was a bit unsteady, his face a bit pale, and sweat seeped out of his forehead. His hands were tightly clenched into fists, and his voice was bloodthirsty and cold. Ren Xiang smiled gently. I didn't do anything. The ghost doctor only told me to prepare a gift for you. Yi Xiaoran's expression shifted, and he pursed his thin lips as if thinking of something. She knows my identity. A black shadow flashed before his eyes. He didn't even have time to hear Ren Xiang's words before his vision darkened, and he fell unconscious. Master, everything is ready. One of the twins came to Ren Xiang's side and said. Ren Xiang stepped forward, took out a pill, and stuffed it into Yi Xiaoran's mouth. Men, take him to the Cool Breeze gang. Two black-clothed cultivators appeared and took the unconscious Yi Xiaoran away. Master, who is this person? Why did the ghost doctor send him here? One of the twins asked. Ren Xiang smiled. The letter said that he's the Temple Lord of the Dark Knight Temple, but somehow managed to sneak into the ghost doctor's side and hide his identity. The ghost doctor has been busy lately and has no time to spare to keep an eye on him, so she sent him here for us to keep an eye on for a few days. So it's the Temple Lord of the Dark Knight Temple. Realization dawned on the twins, and they asked, Master, if he wakes up and knows he's in our Cool Breeze gang, will he cause any trouble? He won't. No matter how strong he is, he's no different from an ordinary person in our hands. Just keep an eye on him and don't let him take half a step out of the Cool Breeze gang during this period. Ren Xiang smiled. This Yi Xiaoran's looks are rather outstanding. It's not a bad idea to have him as a living signboard in our brothel. The twins behind him looked at each other and thought to themselves, why do they feel that if the Lord of the Dark Knight Temple recovers, the Cool Breeze gang will also suffer? When Yi Xiaoran woke up, he felt a chill on his body. Looking down, he saw that he was naked from head to toe. A transparent golden chiffon loosely covered his body from the outside, and only 2 pieces of golden cloth covered his lower body from the front to the back. However, the faintly discernible sight made him feel even more ashamed than if he were naked. However, when he wanted to stand up in shame, he found that all the strength in his body seemed to have been sucked away by someone. He lay on the bed softly, unable to even raise his hand. Damn it! He cursed in a low voice. Even his flustered and exasperated voice was weak and powerless. It sounded extremely despicable. Hee, you're awake. A gentle laugh sounded. Only then did Yi Xiaoran notice that a man called Ren Xiang was sitting at a table blocked by a screen. At this moment, he was looking at him with a gentle and smiling gaze. Seeing that gaze stop on him, Yi Xiaoran's face darkened. You're courting death. Who was he? When had he ever been humiliated like this? He had never imagined that he would be stripped naked and put on such indecent clothes. Chapter 24-26. Young Master Yi, I'm only following orders. Even if you're angry, you shouldn't be angry at me. He smiled warmly and sat elegantly at the table, sipping tea. He didn't think there was anything wrong with pushing Fengzhou out so easily. Hearing this, Yi Xiaoran's eyes flashed, and the anger in his chest strangely dissipated. Since he couldn't move, he lay down and looked at Ren Xiang, asking, Did that woman Fengzhou tell you to do this? Is this the present she was talking about? That's right, Ren Xiang replied with a smile. Yi Xiaoran's expression darkened. It was unknown what he was thinking. After a long while, he asked again, So she knows my identity? That's why she set me up like this. The ghost doctor knows young Master Yi's identity as the Temple Master of the Dark Knight Temple. Yi Xiaoran snorted at Ren Xiang's words. You sure answer all my questions. Ren Xiang chuckled. Of course. There's no need to hide this from young Master Yi. Are you one of her subordinates? How come I didn't know she had a subordinate like you? He asked, staring at Ren Xiang. Most of the people who followed Fengzhou were Du Fan, Leng Hua, and people from the Heavenly Pill Dispensary. Where did this person come from? You can say yes, but you can also say no. Ren Xiang smiled gently, took a sip of tea, and said, "My master is the king of hell, and also the ghost doctor's fiancé. So speaking of which, the ghost doctor can be considered half my master." Yixiran's eyes flashed, and a name came out of his mouth. "Your master is Shen Yuanmo's." "That's right." Ren Xiang smiled and picked up the teacup to drink. Unlike Grey Wolf and Ying Yi, he seldom stayed by his master's side. Especially after his master went overseas, he rarely moved around. He only left occasionally to deal with some matters. Most of his time was spent in the Cool Breeze gang. "What are you trying to do by making me look like this?" He looked at his appearance and his face darkened again. "Young Master Yi, you might not know what kind of place my Cool Breeze brothel is." Ren Xiang smiled, stood up, and slowly walked toward him. Yixiran had a bad premonition when he heard that and saw his current attire. As expected, before he could ask, he saw the other person walk in front of him and speak with a chuckle. "Actually, my Cool Breeze brothel is a brothel." Yi's words, Yixiran. His mouth twitching, he gritted his teeth and said, "Yis, you've made me look neither human nor ghost, so that I can be a brothel's brothel boy." "No, young Master Yi, you worry too much. With young Master Yi's status, how can you be an escort? Just a living Yi." He chuckled and said, "Actually, people who offended the ghost doctor have been sent here before, just like young Master Yi. However, they did not have young Master Yi's looks." Yixiran felt a fire ignite in his chest when a man commented on his looks, but there was nothing he could do. Seeing that he couldn't break out of this predicament, he could only take a deep breath and suppress the anger in his heart. He asked, "You plan to put me out like this?" Ren Xiang shook his head and smiled. "I prepared a mask for young Master Yi, but if you don't want to wear it, you can choose not to." Chapter 24-27. At this time, Fengjiu had already thrown Yixiran to the back of her mind. These few days, she had been waiting for news while dealing with the matters at hand. What surprised her was that she actually found out that her brother had escaped from the demons, but his whereabouts were unknown. However, no matter what, this news was already good news to her. At least, he didn't fall into the hands of the demons, so she naturally didn't have to worry about his safety. "Master." A figure quietly appeared in the pavilion of the Heavenly Pill building. It was Changqing. "You're here. How is it?" Fengjiu, who was sitting at the table dealing with matters, raised her eyes to look at him and asked. "According to the news, the demons will first use the Nebula Immortal sect to test their blade. Now, the demons' army has split into several groups and is heading towards the Nebula Immortal sect, preparing to attack from the front and back and destroy it." Hearing this, Fengjiu was slightly surprised. It's actually the Nebula Immortal sect. Among the four major immortal sects, the one closest to the demons was not the Nebula Immortal sect. Therefore, she originally didn't expect that the Demon Lord would choose the Nebula Immortal sect to attack first. "What are Master's arrangements next?" Changqing asked. Fengjiu pondered for a long time before saying, "Go and give the order to gather everyone and head to the Nebula Immortal sect to help." Changqing knew that when she said gather everyone here, she was talking about the cultivators subdued by the floating land. Thus, he nodded in response and turned to leave. After Changqing left, Fengjiu summoned a phoenix guard and asked him to send the news to the four major immortal sects. Then, after arranging the matters of the Heavenly Pill building and the Feng Manor, she quietly headed towards the Nebula Immortal sect. On the other side, the Thunderfire mercenaries who were flying on their swords brought Feng Yi and Zhao Yang in the direction of Hundred River City. Although they were cultivators, it was impossible for them to fly on their swords day and night. Thus, in the evening, when the sky gradually darkened, they landed on the ground and found a place to rest, preparing to rest for the night before continuing on their journey. In a small forest on the side of the road, they sat together on the ground with a small bonfire in the middle. Everyone had dry rations on them, so they didn't need to look for food. "Have a good rest after eating something." Arrange for the night watch as well. Su Yan said to a mercenary beside him. Understood, Captain. The mercenary replied and called for a few people to stand guard around. How long until we reach 100 Rivers City? Feng Yi looked up at Su Yan and asked. Su Yan ate his rations and said, based on the current distance, we should be able to arrive in about 4 or 5 days. Looking at the hard pancake in his hand, Feng Yi asked in confusion, the commission I gave you is not low. Why do you still eat this hard pancake? Why didn't you prepare some delicious dry food? He told Yang Yang that he had bought a lot of pastries, as well as some delicious pancakes. However, they only got a white pancake, and they didn't even see any chopped green onions. It's just something to fill the stomach. Once you get used to it, it'll be fine. Su Yan said and took a big bite of the pancake, drinking it with cold water. Seeing this, Feng Yi took out some spiced beef from his space and handed it to him. Yang Yang and I bought a lot. You can have some. Hearing this, the mercenaries were startled. They looked at each other, then looked at Feng Yi. Their lips moved as if they wanted to say something, but in the end, they didn't say anything. They only lowered their heads and ate their pancakes. Chapter 24-28. You'll only have the strength to protect us when you're full. If you only eat that flatbread, you won't have the strength to fight. As Feng Yi spoke, he stuffed the soy sauce meat into his hand. Seeing this, Su Yan took a deep look at the child beside him. He paused for a moment before saying, "Thank you." As he spoke, he gave the soy sauce meat wrapped in oil paper to everyone to eat. After Feng Yi ate, he leaned against Xiao Yang and fell asleep by the fire. Not long after, he fell into a deep sleep. Compared to Feng Yi's relaxed state, Xiao Yang sat cross-legged with his back ramrod straight and his eyes closed to rest. Looking at the two children, the mercenaries' eyes were filled with curiosity. Along the way, the two children had surprised them. The younger one was innocent and naive, while the older one had always been like a guard. Even with them guarding, he had always stayed by his little master's side without slacking in the slightest. What kind of family could train such a young and responsible guard? They were truly curious. The night passed peacefully until morning. After resting, everyone continued their journey on their swords. However, when they passed by a mountain, they were forced to stop by a group of rogue cultivators. Hand over all your money. The rogue cultivators sternly shouted and gloomily stared at the Thunderfire mercenaries. Su Yan blocked the two children behind him and had his team members protect them. He walked forward and said, "We're just passing by. There's no need to make things difficult for your excellency." Ha 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 ha. We're making things difficult for you, so what? If you know what's good for you, hand over all your valuables. Otherwise, I'll make you leave behind your lives. The rogue cultivator in the lead laughed loudly and clamored because he had more people than them. Seeing this, Su Yan made a hand gesture behind his back. In the next moment, he took the lead and rushed forward. The pressure of a nascent soul cultivator carried a fierce aura. His blade was like a fierce tiger pouncing on its prey. A cold glint was reflected by the rising sun. A sharp scream rang out, and a stream of blood splashed out, splattering all over the ground. The sudden attack caused the rogue cultivators to panic, especially when they saw that the other party had killed one of their rogue cultivators in a single move, causing them to panic even more. The rogue cultivator in the lead shouted, "Don't panic. Kill them and take their belongings. Charge with me." With a shout, more than 20 rogue cultivators rushed forward. Each of them held a sharp knife in their hands. Killing intent burst out from their bodies and filled the air. Protect the two children. With Su Yan's order, 4 mercenaries guarded Feng Yi and Xiao Yang closely, protecting them in the middle of the 4 people, not letting those rogue cultivators hurt them at all. In the past, when they were out on missions, some employers did not treat them as human beings and ordered them around. When they encountered danger, they would push them forward, completely disregarding their lives. However, although these two children were young, they were pure and kind. Even if they did not take their commission, they would still protect their safety. Not to mention, the two of them had paid so much commission to them. Therefore, even if they were to lose their lives, they would do their best to protect them. Feng Yi blinked his eyes as he looked at the flashes of swords and sabers around him. He looked at the whistling sword chi around him, but there was no fear in his eyes. There was only a calmness that was different from that of an ordinary child. Chapter 24-29. He didn't care about other people's lives. He only knew that protecting Feng Yi was what he had to do. However, even though the Thunder Fire mercenaries were only second-rank mercenaries, their battle power was beyond his expectations. Seeing the rogue cultivators fall one by one, and seeing that the Thunder Fire mercenaries had the upper hand even though they had fewer people, his cold eyes couldn't help but flash. It seemed that the mercenaries that the little master had picked had the battle power of a first-rank mercenary. Facing these people, there shouldn't be any big problems. As expected, as time passed, the number of rogue cultivators decreased, and because of this, they became more and more flustered. In the end, the rogue cultivator in the lead ran away while cursing, "Damn it. 10 people against 20 of us, and they still have the upper hand. I don't want to fight anymore. Hurry up and retreat." Under the rogue cultivator's order to retreat, the remaining 10 or so rogue cultivators quickly retreated, not daring to stay. The Thunder Fire mercenaries were also well trained. Seeing them retreat, they didn't chase after them. Instead, they quickly regrouped and counted the number of people who were injured. "Captain, we don't have any deaths, but there are 8 people injured. One of them is seriously injured," a mercenary reported. "Clean up the battlefield and move to another place," Su Yan said in a deep voice. He let the mercenaries split up a small team to clean up the battlefield and take away all the valuables from the rogue cultivators. Then, he quickly brought them to a safe place before letting them stop and bandage their wounds. "Your battle power is very strong," Feng Yi sat at the side and said as he watched them bandage their wounds. Hearing this, the mercenaries chuckled. "You can see that we are very strong." "I can see that. But why are you only second-rank mercenaries?" Feng Yi nodded and said. He wasn't stupid, so how could he not see it? "Because there are people from above who are suppressing us and won't give us a first rank, so we can only be second rank." A mercenary laughed. "Second-rank mercenaries can receive fewer missions, and the commission isn't much. The mission we received from you can be said to be the best mission we received this year." Feng Yi blinked and looked as if he didn't understand. "No wonder you all eat white flatbread." Hearing this, the mercenaries laughed. Although they were injured, no one took it seriously. After all, they relied on this line of work to make a living, and getting injured was a common occurrence. On the contrary, as they gradually became more familiar with these two children, they became more easygoing. However, everyone's relaxed and happy atmosphere disappeared when they saw Su Yan's body tensed up. Seeing their captain's vigilant look, the mercenaries also quickly got into a defensive posture. At the same time, Zhao Yang also vigilantly guarded Feng Yi. Feng Yi also stood up and looked around. I didn't expect that a mere mercenary group would be so vigilant." Suddenly, the mercenaries the Thunder Fire heard them. The reason for that was because the oppressive might contained within that laughter was stronger than everyone else's. In other words, the person who had come was stronger than them. This wasn't a good thing for them, especially since they had just gone through a battle and had yet to recover from their exhaustion. Demonic cultivators. Su Yan stared ahead and saw the group of demonic cultivators heading towards them. His gaze was serious and vigilant as it fell on the leader of the demonic cultivators. He quickly thought in his heart. Demonic cultivators. Chapter 24-30. It was a group of 20 to 30 people. They were all dressed in black and had swords hanging from their waists. They emitted a cold and bloodthirsty aura as they stared at them with cold expressions. The weakest among them was at the peak of the Golden Core realm, not to mention the Devil Cultivator in the lead. The aura of the person in the lead was extremely powerful. Just by standing there, he made them feel an unprecedented threat. It seemed that they had really encountered trouble this time. These Devil Cultivators were much stronger than the Rogue Cultivators from before. Even if the Thunderfire mercenaries fought with their lives on the line, they would probably only be killed. The Devil Cultivators on the other side had a strong aura and oppressive might. On the other hand, the Thunderfire mercenaries were all holding swords in their hands. Their bodies were tense like ferocious beasts that could pounce at any time. Killing intent emanated from both sides and enveloped the sky. The tense atmosphere was on the verge of erupting. It was as if as long as the leader of the Devil Cultivators gave the order, blood would splatter and corpses would be strewn all over the place. However, amidst this tense and oppressive atmosphere, a young and innocent voice suddenly rang out, causing everyone to be stunned. "What's a Devil Cultivator?" Feng Yi blinked his pure and clear eyes as he looked curiously at Su Yan and then at the Devil Cultivator in the lead. It was as if he didn't see everyone nervously pursing their lips and frowning because of his words. He pouted his pink lips and his delicate and cute little face was filled with dissatisfaction. "They're clearly the same as us. They're all humans. How are they devils?" As he spoke, he walked towards the Devil Cultivator with his short little legs. Seeing this, Su Yan stretched out his hand to pull him back, but he was flung away. "Little young master, don't go over," he shouted in a deep voice. However, Feng Yi turned around and made a face. "I don't need you to care. This uncle looks very mighty. Moreover, he's better looking than you." Su Yan moved his mouth as he watched the ignorant child walk step by step towards the Devil Cultivator. Just as he was about to make a move, he saw Zhao Yang come to his side. "Whatever my little master says is right. Don't worry about it," Zhao Yang said with an expressionless face. When his gaze met Su Yan's, a dark light flashed through his eyes. Su Yan took a deep breath when he saw this. He tensed his body and didn't say anything else. Instead, he looked at Feng Yi who was walking towards the Devil Cultivator as his heart tightened. What was this child trying to do? Did he not know that they were demonic cultivators who killed without batting an eyelid? Wasn't he afraid? Wasn't he afraid that he would be killed by that demonic cultivator? And this little guard named Zhao Yang, didn't he protect his little master all the way? Why didn't he stop him from walking into the wolf's den? However, they didn't know that Zhao Yang was more nervous and worried than anyone else. However, he believed that Feng Yi must have his reasons for doing so. Moreover, the demonic cultivators in front of them were so strong that they would definitely not be a match for them if they were to fight them head-on. It would be better to see what the little master had in mind. Perhaps it was because no one had ever dared to say such words in front of him. The leading demonic cultivator had a playful expression as he stared with interest at the 6 or 7-year-old child who didn't fear him in the slightest. He watched as the child walked towards him step by step with a relaxed and natural expression. He didn't stop him from approaching and only stared at him until the child stopped in front of him. He raised his head and looked at him curiously. Chapter 24:31. Uncle, you're not a bad person. He blinked his eyes and smiled. Then, he asked, Uncle, we're going to 100 Rivers City. Where are you going? Not a bad person. Ha 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 ha. That's new. The demon cultivator looked at Feng Yi and laughed. I've lived for so long, and this is the first time someone said that I'm not a bad person. With a smile on his face, he looked at the little ghost who took out a fruit from his sleeve and started eating. Little ghost, you don't know what a demonic cultivator is. Feng Yi shook his head as he ate the fruit. He took out another fruit from his sleeve and handed it to the demon cultivator. Uncle, this is for you. The demon cultivator narrowed his eyes. After looking at him, he waved his hand and knocked the fruit out of his hand. Kid, since you don't know what a demon cultivator is, I don't mind letting you know. Then, he shouted to the demon cultivators behind him, capture them all. Hearing this, the Thunderfire mercenary team wanted to attack. However, at that moment, a strong pressure enveloped them. It was as if a huge mountain was pressing down on them, making them unable to move. The 20 to 30 devil cultivators quickly rushed forward and tied them up one by one. The Thunderfire mercenary team, who had no power to resist, had ugly expressions on their faces. However, there was nothing they could do. The devil cultivator in the lead was at least at the fairy realm, and he was not someone they could deal with. Now that they had encountered a devil cultivator with such strength, what else could they do but die? Feng Yi blinked and stopped biting the fruit. He looked up at the demon cultivator beside him and asked, "Uncle, why are you capturing them?" Other than Feng Yi, even Zhao Yang was tied up and thrown to the side. You don't know what a demon cultivator is, right? Then I'll tell you why we're called demon cultivators. His voice was cold and bloodthirsty, and there was a strange expression on his face. Start a fire. Put them on the fire and roast them. As the demon cultivator spoke, a group of demon cultivators went into the forest. They picked up some branches and came back to make a fire. Feng Yi saw this and immediately said, "Light a fire." "I'll help." As he spoke, he ran forward with his short legs and helped to pile up the branches. The leader of the demonic cultivators snorted and ignored him. In his eyes, Feng Yi was just a brat who had just entered the qi refining stage. He would never amount to anything. Therefore, he sat down beside the fire and took out a wild beast from his space to have someone roast it. Glancing at Feng Yi from the corner of his eyes, he saw that the little brat was having fun playing with the fire and didn't care about the lives of the mercenaries. He laughed sinisterly. What a naive and ignorant little brat. While speaking, Zhao Hai took out some wine from the space and started drinking. He glanced at the mercenaries and saw them looking at him with ugly expressions, but none of them called out. Zhao Hai couldn't help but ponder, what's wrong? Were they not afraid? It's rare for me to be in such a good mood, so I'll roast all of you raw and let you have a taste of being slowly roasted to death on a rack. Chapter 24:32. Feng Yi was fiddling with the fire. The leader of the devil cultivators did not order for them to capture him, so the other devil cultivators did not make a move either. He was just a child, and no one put him in their eyes. Feng Yi sat by the fire, stirring the flames with a poker in his hand. As he stirred, the fire became more and more intense. However, they were roasting the game at this time, so they did not put people on the fire to roast. You guys wait first. When this game is cooked, it will be your turn. A devil cultivator said sinisterly as he stabbed the roasting game on the fire with a knife. Blood flowed into the fire, making a hissing sound. The mercenaries who were tied up and piled together suddenly had a change in expression, because they felt a pair of small hands quietly moving among them. As time passed, the game was quickly cooked, and the rich fragrance of meat filled the air. Feng Yi could not help but swallow his saliva as he watched anxiously. Uncle, I want to eat meat too. Feng Yi came to the side of the leader of the devil cultivators. Seeing him eating meat and drinking wine, he could not help but ask, Uncle, what does the wine taste like? You want a drink? The devil cultivator glanced at him with a smile that was not a smile. Little brat, you want a drink too? Daddy didn't let me drink at home, so I don't even know what wine tastes like. With a face full of greed, he pulled on the devil cultivator's sleeve and shook it, like a child acting coquettishly to a relative. Uncle, just let me have a sip. I'll just take a small sip. Perhaps it was because no one had ever dared to get close to him like this. Looking at this little brat's exquisite and cute appearance, and then hearing his tender and soft words, the devil cultivator handed over the wine bag containing the wine. Feng Ye's eyes lit up, and he happily hugged the wine bag and drank a few mouthfuls, but just a few mouthfuls caused his face to turn red, and he kept coughing, cough cough cough, so spicy, so spicy. He opened his mouth and stuck out his tongue, one hand fanning his mouth. That appearance made the surrounding devil cultivators laugh. Ha 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 ha. Just look at him. The devil cultivator in the lead also laughed a few times before continuing to drink his wine. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, a bloodthirsty aura flashed across his eyes as he ordered loudly, "Men! Roast them one by one." Yes. The devil cultivators responded excitedly. Just as they were about to step forward, they saw the little ghost who had drunk a few mouthfuls of wine suddenly stand up shakily and start mumbling nonsense. "Two heads. Uncle. Why do you have another head? Uncle, you." As Feng Yi spoke, his body swayed, and his entire body fell into the devil cultivator's embrace. The demonic cultivator's gaze deepened. Just as he was about to push her away, a cold light shot out and pierced towards his chest. Yes. Because he was caught off guard, even when he saw the cold light refract, he was unable to dodge in time and was stabbed. When he waved his hand to strangle the little ghost to death, he saw that the little ghost had already retreated several meters away. Even he couldn't help but be taken aback by that speed. "Kill them," the devil cultivator in the lead ordered. He wanted to kill the mercenaries and the two little ghosts together, but who knew that at this moment, when he shouted with a voice that contained spiritual aura, he realized that something was wrong. "You drugged them." Chapter 24:33. At this moment, Zhao Yang broke free from the ropes on his body and stood up. He quickly used his dagger to untie the ropes on the mercenaries and stuffed something into their mouths. Feng Yi looked at the demonic cultivator with a smile and obediently replied, "Yes. I drugged them." Hearing this, the demonic cultivator's heart sank. As he tried to force the medicine out, he asked, "How did you drug them?" "I didn't notice it at all." When he tried to force the medicine out, he realized that the spiritual energy in his body had disappeared as he circulated his energy. He felt his muscles and bones ache, and he didn't even have the strength to raise his hand. "Of course I can't let you know that I drugged them. Otherwise, how can it be called drugging?" Feng Yi looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot. His tone was so matter-of-fact that the demonic cultivator almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Yang, I'll leave the rest to you." Feng Yi looked at the demonic cultivators with a smile and said to Zhao Yang behind him. "Okay." Zhao Yang replied. As soon as he finished speaking, a small figure quickly swept out. When the cold light was reflected, the corpses fell one by one. Those devil cultivators with strength above the gold core stage were actually killed so easily, and they didn't even have the chance to resist. This scene couldn't help but shock the people of the Thunderfire mercenary group. They only felt that it was inconceivable. What kind of medicine could make these people with such strength unable to resist and be slaughtered? These two children's performance along the way was no different from ordinary children. However, at this moment, they were shocked to know that these two people were actually so secretive. The ropes that the demonic cultivators were tied with knots that even they couldn't untie, but Zhao Yang easily untied them. Moreover, these two children were actually able to make these 20 to 30 demonic cultivators suffer a great loss. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed that this scene had happened. Especially when they saw Zhao Yang reaping the lives of those evil cultivators with a sharp blade in his hand. His cold expression and calm gaze made these mercenaries who were used to killing people on the tip of the knife and the waves couldn't help but shudder. The other demonic cultivators were not as powerful as the leader of the demonic cultivators. Hence, they were easily killed by Zhao Yang after they had been drugged. It was only when the leader of the demonic cultivators was left sitting by the fire that Feng Yi and Zhao Yang's expressions showed a hint of caution. This was because they knew that even if he was drugged, with this person's strength, he would still be able to fight. Yang, let's work together. As Feng Yi spoke, his small figure rushed out like lightning. As soon as Feng Yi spoke, Zhao Yang released his aura. When his gold core stage cultivation pressure was released, the Thunderfire mercenary squad couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Heavens! He's actually at the gold core realm. He was still a child who was only about 10 years old. How could he already possess the strength of a golden core? How was this possible? However, they didn't know that when Zhao Yang was brought back by Fengzhou, it was discovered that his physique was special. In terms of cultivation, he improved far faster than ordinary people. In addition, he had the pills that Fengzhou gave him in his space. Chapter 24-34. Zhao Yang's cultivation was above Feng Ye's. Little Feng Ye's current cultivation was only at the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. Although he could be considered heaven-defying among his peers, he still couldn't compare to Zhao Yang. However, these two people had different body movements and attacking moves. Most of Feng Ye's moves were taught by his master later, while Zhao Yang's attacks were more fierce and deadly, aiming at the opponent's Achilles heel as soon as he made a move. The two people's attacks shocked everyone. Even the devil cultivator who was the leader was shocked. He knew that he had made the biggest and stupidest mistake, which was to be too arrogant and look down on others. If he didn't think that his cultivation was invincible among these people, and if he didn't look down on the little demon, how could he have fallen for the little demon's trick? Now, when he saw the two little ghosts attacking him together with killing intent, he immediately snorted, "Humph! Even if I'm drugged, you two little demons can't kill me." As soon as his gloomy voice fell, he slapped the ground with both hands and flew up. He raised his hand and a fierce sword chi attacked the two people at an extremely fast speed. The two people somersaulted in the air and dodged the attack. At the same time, they pounced forward again. The two small figures tangled with the devil cultivator, and the fight was very intense. The devil cultivator had lost all of his spiritual power, and his whole body was sore and weak. He was only able to fight with the two now because he had used up the last of his strength. He thought that he could easily kill the two people, but who knew that the two little demons were like two slippery loaches that kept slipping around him. He couldn't catch them even if he wanted to. Just as he was dodging Zhao Yang's attack, a small fist suddenly struck him from behind again. This time, it was aimed at the stab wound on his back. The child's fist didn't have much strength, but the fist of a middle-stage Foundation establishment cultivator was different. When the fist came down, he spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, the last bit of strength in his body seemed to have been exhausted, and his speed slowed down. He tried to block the sword chi coming at him, but when he tried to block it, he found that the sword in his hand had already been knocked away. Swish! Only to see the sword ruthlessly chopping down, directly cutting through his face, causing him to angrily and unwillingly widen his eyes. His body instantly stiffened, as if time had stopped at that moment. He couldn't even hear the surrounding sounds, only feeling the blood splattering on his face. Bang! Seeing the demonic cultivator fall, Feng Yi gasped for breath. Just as he was about to walk forward to take a look, Zhao Yang pulled him back. "I'll go." Zhao Yang protected him behind his back and stepped forward to kick him. After repeatedly confirming that he was dead, he turned back to Feng Yi and said, "He's dead." Yang, your swordsmanship has become even more powerful," Feng Yi praised with a smile. "If you study hard, you can be like me in the future." Zhao Yang's small face was still tense. He took all the valuable things from the devil cultivator's body and handed them to Feng Yi. Seeing so many things, Feng Yi's eyes couldn't help but light up, and he put away all the things with a smile. After hearing no other sound for a long time, the two of them looked at the people of the Thunder Fire mercenary team who were still sitting on the ground and asked, "How are you? Have you recovered?" The people of the Thunder Fire mercenary team opened their mouths. After stabilizing their minds, they said, "We still have some strength." Chapter 24-35. It'll be fine in a while, Feng Yi said as he walked towards them with his short legs. Although I let you take the antidote, you won't be able to recover in a short time. Anyway, they're all dead, so you can rest for a while. Hearing this, the mercenaries felt strange. The previous scene gave them a feeling that these two children didn't need their protection at all. With their skills and wit, they could protect themselves. Yang, are you hurt? Feng Yi looked at Xiao Yang and asked, looking him up and down. No. Xiao Yang shook his head and said. Yang, how much medicine do we have left? Feng Yi pulled him to the side, where the two children were chattering. We don't have the medicine you used just now, but we still have some medicine for internal and external injuries. Xiao Yang said in a low voice. The medicine Feng Yi used just now was given to him by Fengjiu for self-defense, but he rarely used it after the accident. This time, before going down the mountain, he specially gave some of the medicine to Feng Yi for self-defense, but he didn't expect to use it. It's okay. When my niece arrives, we'll ask her for some more, Feng Yi said with a smile. As the two of them were talking, the Thunder Fire mercenaries were resting. They didn't stand up until the effects of the medicine on their bodies were completely gone. Little Lord. Su Yan came in front of him and bowed respectfully to him. Thank you, Little Lord. If it weren't for your wit, I'm afraid we would all have died at the hands of these devil cultivators. No need to thank me. It's getting late. Since you've rested well, let's hurry on our way, Feng Yi said as he blinked his pure and clear eyes. Okay. Although they didn't know why the two of them needed their escort, since they had accepted this mission, they would do their best to send them to 100 River City. Although they were curious about what medicine the two of them used, they were still able to defeat an immortal fairy. Even a fairy realm powerhouse would be drugged. However, the two of them didn't say anything about it, and they didn't dare to ask about it, so it was as if this matter had passed. However, after this incident, the crowd no longer treated the two of them as ordinary children. How could ordinary children reach the early stage of the Gold Core stage and the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment stage at their age? The group continued on their way. Even when they saw the two children obtain the treasures of those demonic cultivators, no one had any evil thoughts. On the other side, Guan Shilin had also arrived at a town to settle down. He wore a simple black robe and held a large saber in his hand. However, the large beard on his face covered most of his face, making it impossible to see his true appearance. He only knew that his aura was powerful, and his entire body was emitting a murderous aura. Even if he didn't make a move, just the murderous aura on his body was enough to make people retreat. He came to an inn in the city. As soon as he entered the door, the waiter came up to him and asked, "Sir, are you staying here?" "Yes, one of the best rooms, a jug of wine, and a few dishes." He walked into the inn and sat down by the window. "All right, please have a seat." The waiter poured him a cup of tea and retreated. Not long after, the wine and dishes were served. Chapter 24:36. By the window, Guan Shilin's hand that was holding the wine cup slightly paused as he looked at the people at the other table. He saw that it was a few cultivators who were talking in low voices. That devil master's strength is too strong. I wonder who can stop him. If we can't stop him, I'm afraid this continent will be in chaos. Another cultivator said, shaking his head and sighing. Who can stop him? Even the people of the four great immortal sects can't stop him, who can? Haven't you heard of another news? Another person said in a low voice, it said that Tianji Elder once said a few prophecies, the Phoenix Star has appeared, a strange soul will enter the world. He will come from beyond the heavens, break the 8 extremes of the heavenly Tao, and become the master of the world. Have you heard of these words? Phoenix Star. I've heard of it before. The Phoenix Star mentioned by Tianji Elder is referring to the eldest daughter of the Bai clan, Bai Qingqing. It said that when this girl was born, there was a strange phenomenon in the heavens. Later on, she was accepted as a direct disciple of the Heavenly Sun Immortal sect. Her status is extraordinary. Then the eldest daughter of the Bai clan, Bai Qingqing. Wrong, wrong. Another person shook his head. The Bai clan was exterminated not long ago. As for that Bai Qingqing, it said that she lost a bet to the Heavenly Pill Building's ghost Dr. Fingzhou, and followed ghost Dr. Fingzhou as a maid. That's how she managed to survive. How could she be the Phoenix Star? The Phoenix Star is a person with great fortune. From what you're saying, you seem to know who this Star of the Phoenix is. Another cultivator asked curiously. Of course. The cultivator's expression was somewhat proud. He lowered his voice and said, "It said that the Phoenix Star mentioned by Tianji Elder is none other than the Heavenly Pill Building's ghost Dr. Fingzhou. This time, when the demons attacked the four great immortal sects, the four great immortal sects sent people to ask ghost Dr. Fingzhou for help." Really? Several people were surprised. Of course it's true. I have an uncle in the four great immortal sects. Do you know how famous the ghost Dr. Fengjiu of the Celestial Pill House is now? The pills from that place can be said to be heaven-defying. As long as you can get the pills from the ghost Dr. Fengjiu, you can even save a dying person. The cultivator paused for a moment before continuing. Furthermore, I also heard that because the demon lord personally led the devil cultivator to attack the immortal sect, their target was the Nebula Immortal sect. The Nebula Immortal sect sent people to invite the ghost doctor to help protect the sect. Let me tell you, this ghost Dr. Fingzhou is not only heaven-defying in terms of medicinal pills, her strength and cultivation can also be said to be heaven-defying. How is that possible? That ghost Dr. Fingzhou is said to be a woman. Furthermore, how can she fight against the demons by herself? Hearing the words of the people on the other side, Guan Shilin ate his food and drank his wine. His gaze shifted to the main street outside. Looking at the people coming and going on the streets, no one knew what he was thinking. Suddenly, from the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of a group of mercenaries walking down the street. The figure in the middle of the mercenaries gave him an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Puzzled, he took out a few gold coins and placed them on the table before leaving with his broadsword. The waiter walked over. Seeing that the dishes on the table were not much to eat and the guest had left, he shouted, "Guest! Guest!" Chapter 24:37. Old man, which road did that group of mercenaries take? He asked the stall owner beside him. Mercenaries? Oh, they took this road, the old man said as he pointed at a road. Thank you, Guan Shilin said as he left a gold coin at the stall. The old man looked at the gold coin and couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. When he came back to his senses, he saw that the man had already strode away. In front of him, in an inn, Yi Jing's beautiful face was cold. Her hands were tied behind her back, and the spiritual energy in her body seemed to have been sealed. Even though her white dress was slightly dirty and her hair was slightly messy, Yi Jing's expression was still cold. Her hands were tied behind her back, and the spiritual energy in her body seemed to have been sealed. However, she was still very eye-catching among those mercenaries. At first glance, she gave people a feeling that this woman didn't fit in with the group of ferocious mercenaries. Because of the woman's beautiful appearance and outstanding temperament, and because she was tied up, some people in the inn couldn't help but stare at the group of mercenaries and size them up. They guessed that this group of mercenaries had captured such a woman. Moreover, they even brazenly brought the captured people into the city. Looking at it now, that woman must have been captured by that group of mercenaries. A man in embroidered clothes said as his gaze fell on the elegant woman who was sitting at the table. Such a beautiful woman had fallen into the hands of these ferocious mercenaries. It was easy to imagine what would happen to her. Sir, I advise you to mind your own business. This group of mercenaries is famous in this area. No one dares to provoke them, a practitioner said in a low voice. Famous? No one dares to provoke them. The man in embroidered clothes was stunned. He looked at the practitioner at the table next to him and asked, "Do you know this group of mercenaries?" "That's the 9-headed wolves mercenary group. Do you see the 9 people sitting around the 2 tables? The 9 of them are all at the peak of the nascent soul realm, and it is said that their eldest brother has just advanced to the fairy realm not long ago. Let's not talk about the 9 of them, just the 30 to 40 mercenaries with them are all at the gold core realm. The combat prowess of this mercenary group is well known in this area, and no one dares to provoke them. They often make a move on female loose cultivators, especially the beautiful female loose cultivators, and sell them. That woman is so beautiful, and her strength is no match for them, so it is normal for her to fall into their hands." When he heard them, the man in embroidered clothes that spoke earlier instantly didn't dare look at the woman again. He was deeply afraid that if he continued looking at her, he would be unable to refrain from standing up for her. However, his strength truly didn't allow him to act like a hero and save a beauty. Yi Jing sat quietly while paying attention to the people in the inn. She wanted to see if anyone could save her from the hands of these people. At this moment, not only was her spiritual energy sealed, she couldn't even speak. Even if she wanted to ask for help, she could only wait for the right opportunity. Otherwise, she would not be able to escape and would instead provoke these mercenaries. However, when she looked around, although most of the people in the inn were looking in her direction, no one dared to stand up for her. Especially since these people's strength was no match for these mercenaries. Thus, even if she wanted to ask for help, it would be very difficult. When she thought about how she had fallen into the hands of these people, and how she had been escorted all the way here, and how they had said that they would sell her somewhere, although she was panicking, she didn't dare to show it on her face. Chapter 24:38. Waiter. Where's the wine? Why hasn't it been served yet? One of the mercenaries slammed the table and yelled. It's here, it's here. The waiter hurriedly served the wine and dishes to them while smiling apologetically. Please eat first, the next dish will be served soon. While the mercenaries were eating, Guan Shilin strode in from outside the inn. He glanced at Yi Jing, who was sitting in the middle of the mercenaries, and his eyes flashed when he saw that it was indeed her. He didn't expect Yi Jing to come here and fall into the hands of these mercenaries. Looking at her tired face and anxious expression, he guessed that she must have suffered a lot along the way. Waiter, a pot of wine. He walked in and sat down at a table facing the mercenaries. When he walked in with a murderous aura, the mercenaries became alert and unconsciously gripped the swords on the table. However, when they saw that the bearded man only sat down and ordered a pot of wine and didn't look in their direction, the mercenaries gradually relaxed. On the first floor of the inn, other than the 9 of them who were sitting at the 2 tables, the other mercenaries were sitting at the surrounding tables. However, because this table was facing the 9 of them, the other mercenaries didn't dare to sit down. Unexpectedly, Guan Shilin, who had just walked in, sat down. Yi Jing's eyes were filled with surprise and excitement when Guan Shilin walked in. However, she lowered her eyes and concealed it well, not letting the mercenaries next to her notice. Even though Guan Shilin had grown a large beard and even covered his face, she would never mistake that voice, that gaze, and that figure. At this moment, she felt an inexplicable sadness in her heart. She didn't expect to meet him here, and even more so in such a situation. Seeing him here, she felt that her heart was finally at ease. Waiter, here's your wine. The waiter served the wine and looked at Guan Shilin, who was sitting facing the 9 mercenaries, and asked, Waiter, would you like a few dishes to go with the wine? Our store's signboard. Before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted. No need. Guan Shilin waved his hand and frowned, indicating for him to leave. Yes, please enjoy your meal, sir. The waiter wiped his cold sweat and quickly retreated. Guan Shilin poured himself a glass of wine and drank it. As he raised his glass, he glanced at Yi Jing. He noticed that Yi Jing was sandwiched in the middle by the mercenaries. It could be said that they were guarding her tightly. If he suddenly made a move, he was afraid that he would hurt Yi Jing. Therefore, he could only wait for an opportunity. While Zhao Hai was drinking, the other side was also drinking and laughing. When the mercenaries were full, the 9 stood up and said, "We're going to hand over the goods. You guys wait here for us to come back." "Yes." The mercenaries all stood up and replied. They watched as the 9 men led the beautiful woman out of the inn. Only then did they continue drinking and laughing. Seeing them leave, Guan Shilin put down his glass, paid the bill, and followed them out with the wine jug in his hand. He didn't follow slowly behind them. Instead, he swayed slightly as he walked and drank from the wine jug in his hand. He looked like a drunkard, swaying left and right. Many people who saw him quickly avoided him. Chapter 24:39. After a light snort, he ignored the people behind him, thinking that it was impossible for them to be the target. Guan Shilin, who was behind him, strode forward, his body swaying from side to side. When he was about to bump into the mercenaries, they avoided him. "Don't you look where you're going? Are you looking for death?" One of them shouted in a sinister voice, raising his fist to punch Guan Shilin. Burp. Guan Shilin burped, raised the wine pot in his hand and asked, "Drink, drink. Get lost. If I see you again, I'll beat you to death." The mercenary shouted in a gloomy voice. Hee, okay. Guan Shilin said with a smile. Then, with a swaying step, his body fell towards those people, and the wine in the wine pot in his hand spilled out. The mercenaries instinctively took a step back to dodge, but at this moment, the woman who was walking in the middle of them suddenly rushed forward and cursed in a low voice, "Stupid woman. Trying to run." When they reached out to grab her, they saw that the drunkard suddenly stood up straight and pulled the woman to his side. At the same time, he waved the big knife in his other hand and slashed towards their heads, scaring them so much that they quickly took a few steps back. "Yi Jing, how are you?" Guan Shilin asked. His eyes were clear and his voice was low, without the slightest hint of drunkenness from before. Yi Jing opened her mouth, but couldn't say a word. She could only look at him with a pair of joyful eyes. Guan Shilin frowned, and while untying the rope behind her, he asked, "Was your pressure point hit?" After seeing Yi Jing nod her head, he injected profound energy into his hand and tapped twice on her body to release her mute acupoint. Yi Jing groaned and said, "They sealed my spiritual power. Don't worry, I'll help you undo it later. Just wait here while I deal with these people." He reached out and pushed her behind him, indicating for her to stand aside. "Be careful, the leader has the strength of a fairy realm cultivator." At this time, she did not know how powerful Guan Shilin was, so she could not help but feel a little worried. "Yes, I know." Guan Shilin replied in a low voice, revealing a comforting smile. However, when he turned to look at the mercenaries, the bloodthirsty fierceness in his eyes was extremely shocking. "So it's an old flame. Then don't blame us for killing you," the 9 mercenaries said in a gloomy voice. In an instant, the 9 of them flew forward and viciously attacked his vital points. However, the person standing in front of them today was Guan Shilin, not an ordinary cultivator. Therefore, all of them would fall into his hands. "How dare you touch my people, you're courting death!" Guan Shilin shouted in a low voice. His figure, which was like Mount Tai, rushed out in an instant. With a wave of the large blade in his hand, the biting cold chi of the blade, which was mixed with a bloodthirsty murderous aura, attacked with the force of thunder. A powerful pressure spread out in an instant, pouncing towards the 9 people like a fierce tiger. On the side, Yi Jing, who was nervously watching Guan Shilin fight with the mercenaries, couldn't help but blush when she heard Guan Shilin say that they were his people. Chapter 24:40. This person is a mystic. But his cultivation level is very high. I can actually feel the pressure from here. It seems like he's not an ordinary mystic. He's up against the 9 members of the 9-headed wolves mercenary. The strongest of the 9 is already at the fairy realm. How can he fight against 9 of them alone? Just as the crowd was discussing, Yi Jing saw Guan Shilin swing his sword and slice off a mercenary's head. Fresh blood splattered on the ground, and the surrounding commoners covered their eyes in shock and screamed. "Ah!" Hiss. The commoners' screams were mixed with the cultivators' gasps. They looked at the man who was filled with a strong desire to fight and a terrifying aura. They couldn't help but be shocked. His clean and nimble movements, his thick fighting spirit, and his intimidating aura gave them a strong visual shock. Could this person really fight against 9 people by himself? While they were distracted, they saw that 2 of the 9 people were already dead. As for the mercenaries in the inn, they rushed out after hearing the commotion. When they saw the scene in front of them, their eyes turned red as they drew their swords and rushed forward. Seeing the mercenaries join in the battle, Yi Jing couldn't help but panic. She was worried that Guan Shilin couldn't deal with so many people alone. However, she wanted to help. Not to mention that her spiritual power was sealed. Even if it wasn't, she wouldn't be a match for these people. For the time being, she could only stand by and watch anxiously. On the street, when the news of a bearded man fighting against the 9-headed wolves mercenary spread, many people came to watch. One had to know that no one dared to provoke the 9-headed wolves in this area. Now, someone actually dared to attack them. They couldn't help but be curious. Who was this person? How dare he fight against the 9-headed wolves mercenary by himself? The sounds of battle, the clanging of swords and sabers clashing, the low roars and screams caused the surroundings to become silent. Everyone held their breaths as they looked at the group of people who were fighting to the death. The ground was covered in blood and corpses, and all of them were horrified. They were so nervous that they clenched their fists. When 2 strong cultivators fought, those who were not as strong as them were unable to get close to them at all. They were even slowed down under the powerful pressure, which gave Guan Shilin the opportunity to kill them. Corpses fell down one after another. Some were cut in half at the waist, some had their necks cut off, and some were stabbed to death. The bloody scene was overwhelming, and it made the leader of the 9-headed wolves flustered and exasperated. "You killed so many of my brothers. Who the hell are you? Tell me your name if you have the guts. Even if I told you, you wouldn't know your grandpa Guan." Guan Shilin snorted coldly. He pointed the large blade in his hand at the ground and glared at the fairy realm mercenaries. "Today, none of you will be able to escape." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure quickly swept out. Because he was so fast, no one could see his figure clearly. They only knew that a shadow flashed past, and in the blink of an eye, he had already swung his blade at the fairy realm mercenary. The fairy realm mercenary used the long sword in his hand to block, but who knew that his strength would be suppressed bit by bit. His body was pressed down, and his whole body was bent backwards. When he saw the long blade, which was shining with a cold light, pressing down on him, and the aura of death enveloping him, he couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Chapter 24:41. You. Before he could finish his sentence, the sharp blade had already slit his throat. In an instant, blood spurted out and dyed the ground red like plum blossoms. As Guan Shilin withdrew his long blade, the fairy realm mercenary fell to the ground. Seeing this, Yi Jing quickly walked to his side and asked, "How are you?" She noticed that there were some small wounds on his body that were still bleeding. Guan Shilin turned around and looked at her. Under his big beard, his mouth opened into a smile and he said, "Don't worry, I'm fine." He looked at the corpses on the ground and said to Yi Jing, "Wait for a moment." He then went forward and collected the cosmos sacks and all the valuables from the mercenaries. When he saw that one of the cosmos sacks had something that belonged to Yi Jing, he handed it to her and said, this is yours. Keep it well. Okay. Yi Jing replied and took the item. Let's go. He was about to leave with Yi Jing. However, just as the two of them turned around, an old man walked out and said, "Brother, please wait." Guan Shilin stopped and looked at the man. He sized him up calmly and asked, "What's the matter?" He, may I know this brother's name? Are you a loose cultivator? If you are, why don't we invite you to the Lin family as a guest? The old man asked with a smile and invited him. Guan Shilin said slowly, "I'm sorry, I'm not a loose cultivator." With that, he held Yi Jing's hand and walked away. The surrounding people saw the two of them walking away and their hearts couldn't help but tremble. Although they were envious of the man who stole the nine-headed wolves' mercenaries' belongings, no one dared to stop them from leaving, and no one dared to snatch them away. This was because they knew that the bearded man was very powerful. Even the nine-headed wolves' mercenary was no match for him, let alone them. The guards of the city watched from the crowd as they left, but they didn't dare to stop them. They could only accept their fate and clean up the corpses. After they left, a cultivator suddenly exclaimed, "Ah! I remember now. This person was the elder brother of Fingzhou, the ghost doctor of Hundred River City's Heavenly Dan building, Guan Shilin. I once saw him at the Hundred River City's Heavenly Dan building. He helped to repel some people who went to the Heavenly Dan building to cause trouble." The cultivator said excitedly, "That long saber is Guan Shilin's weapon. I didn't expect such a person to appear in this small town. If he didn't call himself Grandpa Guan, I wouldn't have remembered who he was." Hearing this, the crowd went into an uproar. Who was Fingzhou the ghost doctor? That was the hottest topic in everyone's minds. If that person was her brother, then everyone could understand why he was so strong. While the people here were discussing, on the other side, Guan Shilin brought Yi Jing to an inn and asked the waiter to book 2 rooms. After entering the room, he said to Yi Jing, "Sit down, I'll help you unlock your sealed spiritual power." Yi Jing nodded and sat at the table with her back turned. Guan Shilin channeled his qi into Yi Jing's hand and unsealed her spiritual power. Not long after, he unsealed her acupoints. He saw that Yi Jing's forehead was sweating and she looked exhausted. He said to her, "You should rest. I'll ask the waiter to prepare hot water for your bath." Chapter 2442. She took off her clothes and took a bath in the bathtub, changing into a clean set of clothes. When she came out, she saw him standing outside the door and couldn't help but smile. "I'm done bathing, do you want to come in?" Hearing this, Guan Shilin turned around to look at her. He saw that she was wearing a white dress, and her hair was still dripping with water. Her elegant face was flushed because she had just taken a bath, and she looked much more energetic than before. Seeing her standing by the door and looking at him with a smile, he nodded his head and called for the waiter downstairs to serve the food and wine before walking in. Since the waiter was about to serve the food, the door was left open. The two sat down at the table, and Guan Shiwei looked at her and asked, "When did you come over? How did you meet those mercenaries? I thought that you were all here, so I wanted to come over and see if I could meet you. Originally, I was traveling with a family that was training. However, we were separated and met the 9 Wolves mercenary group, which led to me falling into their hands." Speaking of this, her voice paused, and her beautiful eyes looked at him, unable to hide her joy. "On the way, I tried to ask for help, but I never had the chance. I didn't expect to meet you here. It's dangerous for a woman like you to travel alone here, especially when some of the loose cultivators and mercenaries here are very strong. Survival of the fittest is a common occurrence here. I can only say that you're lucky to meet me here." Guan Shilin smiled and said, "Actually, before this, I was captured by the demons and was imprisoned for almost a year. I only recently escaped, and I was passing by here on my way back to Hundred River City to find Fingzhou." Hearing this, Yi Jing exclaimed in surprise, "What? You were captured by the demons? and imprisoned for almost a year. Yes, it's a long story. He smiled and paused, seeing that the waiter had already come in with the food and wine. Sir, these are the signature dishes of this small shop. The waiter left after serving the food and wine, and even closed the door for the two of them. Guan Shilin poured a glass of wine for her and asked, "How have you been these past few years? Is there anyone in the family urging you?" "No." She shook her head and revealed a gentle smile. "Ever since that incident, no one in the family wants to use me for marriage anymore." Because they knew that she was acquainted with Fengzhou, her family did not dare to force her to marry someone else. She had been concentrating on her cultivation for the past few years. However, she could not wait for him to return, so she came here to look for him. "That's good. I asked Xiao Jiu to inform the people in the black market to take care of you. However, they didn't send the news that you were here. Perhaps it's because I was imprisoned and couldn't receive any news. How did you end up provoking the demon race here? I've heard that the demon's devil master is very powerful and is a formidable opponent." She looked at him with some worry. "He is indeed a formidable opponent." Guan Shilin nodded. "Not only is the Devil Lord powerful, but the 10 devils under him are also very powerful. This time, I was captured by one of the 10 devils under the Devil Lord. Fortunately, my strength has improved a lot in the past year." Chapter 24:43. The two of them chatted casually in the room, talking about the events of the past few years. Before they knew it, a whole day had passed. As the sky gradually darkened, Guan Shilin stood up. "Ah Jing, have a good night's sleep tonight. Get enough rest. We'll leave together tomorrow." "What about you?" Yi Jing couldn't help but stand up and ask. Seeing her nervous expression, Guan Shilin smiled and comforted her. "Don't worry, I'm staying next door. Don't worry and sleep. I'll watch over you. You'll be fine." Hearing him say this, Yi Jing felt relieved and replied, "Okay." She saw him out and watched him enter the room next door before she turned and went back into her room. After the waiter tidied up the room, Yi Jing went into the inner room to rest. That night, because of her encounter with Guan Shilin, she was finally able to put down her worries. The next morning, after Yi Jing woke up, she knocked on Guan Shilin's door. When she saw him open the door with a sleepy face and his beard still covering his face, she couldn't help but chuckle. "Why didn't you shave your beard?" I didn't stay idle on the way here. I didn't pay attention to my beard, so it just grew so long." He smiled and stroked his beard, asking, "Did I scare you?" "No, it's just that it's rare to see you with such a long beard." She chuckled and said, "Why don't I shave it for you?" "Sure." Guan Shilin was happy and let her into the room, saying, "I was planning to shave it when we get back to the city, but with your help, it couldn't be better." He lay down on the soft couch and only closed his eyes to rest when he saw Yi Jing go into the inner room to get some water. This was the first time she had done something like this for him. Although Yi Jing didn't show any shyness on her face, there was still a hint of shyness in her beautiful eyes. She looked at the man lying on his back with his eyes closed with affection and her cheeks flushed red. She suppressed her wildly beating heart and stepped forward to gently shave his beard. With his eyes closed, Guan Shilin could only feel a delicate fragrance coming from her body as she leaned over. The fragrance made his mind sway, especially when he felt her hands moving back and forth on his face. The soft touch made him open his eyes involuntarily. He was originally lying on his back, but when he opened his eyes, he immediately saw her beautiful and elegant countenance leaning over him. His eyes shone brightly as he stared at her, only to see a hint of shyness in her beautiful eyes as a blush appeared on her cheeks. This blush of shyness made her originally beautiful face even more captivating, causing him to involuntarily say, "Ah Jing, you are truly beautiful." Hearing this, Yi Jing revealed a rare shyness of a little girl. Her beautiful eyes were filled with affection as she glared at him. Don't talk, or I'll scratch you. Okay. He closed his mouth, but the corners of his lips curled up happily. His eyes stared straight at her. Being stared at like that, Yi Jing couldn't help but feel a little nervous. She gently bit her pink lips and said shyly, "Close your eyes." "I don't want to." Guan Shilin refused directly and said with a smile, "It's rare to have the opportunity to look at you so closely." "I don't want to close my eyes." You scoundrel." She didn't expect that he, who had always been resolute and dignified, would have such a side to him. She was happy but also a little shy. Chapter 24:44. Yi Jing had no choice but to say, "Don't talk first, I'll help you shave first." She no longer looked at his smiling eyes, but focused on the beard on his chin. She carefully shaved his beard with the razor in her hand, but that burning gaze made her heart beat wildly, unable to calm down for a long time. After much difficulty, she finished shaving his beard. She used a wet cloth to help him wipe it. Looking at his smooth and clean chin, she smiled and said, "Okay, take a look." She took a mirror and handed it to him. Guan Shilin took it, glanced at it, and smiled. "Well, you shaved better than I did. In the future, I'll have to trouble you about my beard." As he spoke, his eyes never left her face. Hearing the meaning of these words, her face overflowed with shyness. Her beautiful eyes looked at him affectionately, then gently turned away and whispered, "Okay." Guan Shilin held her hand and said, "After the demon's matter is settled, I'll find a time to go to your house to propose marriage." As he spoke, he smiled and said, "Xiao Jiu said that he'll accompany me. Also, because my parents are no longer around, I'll invite my adoptive father and the others to visit." Hearing this, joy and shyness appeared on her face. She looked at him, her delicate face slightly lowered, and her eyes didn't dare to look at him directly. She softly replied, "Okay." Early in the morning, the two looked at each other affectionately in the room. It wasn't until the waiter knocked on the door that the two of them came back to their senses. "Guest, Arin's early morning breakfast is fresh out of the oven, would you like to try some?" In the room, the two of them looked at each other and smiled, then walked out together. On the first floor, Guan Shilin asked the waiter to serve some breakfast. After a simple meal, Yi Jing said, "I want to buy some dry food to eat on the way, come with me." "Okay." Guan Shilin replied. After paying the bill for the room, he accompanied her to the street outside. Perhaps it was because many people had seen the scene yesterday, but when some people saw the two of them walking together, they looked at them from time to time. Especially when they saw that the bearded man from yesterday had become a resolute and handsome man today, they were all a little dumbfounded. Is that person the same bearded man who exterminated the 9-headed wolves mercenaries yesterday? It doesn't look like it, but the aura is very similar. It should be. He just shaved. I didn't expect him to be so young. Hearing the discussions around her, Yi Jing pursed her lips and smiled. "You look like a different person after shaving." He, even if I don't shave, wouldn't you be able to recognize me?" Guan Shilin chuckled and held her hand. The two of them bought some dry food on the street and left the city. "Are we going to 100 Rivers City?" Yi Jing asked. Guan Shilin said, "We're not going to 100 Rivers City. We're going to the Nebula Immortal Sect. According to the news, Xiao Jiu should have gone there. I want to rush over and help." Yi Jing nodded and rode on the sword with him. They changed the direction of 100 Rivers City and headed towards the Nebula Immortal Sect. On the other side, Feng Yi and the others who had come to the city to rest also heard the discussions in the inn. Hearing the discussions, little Feng Yi couldn't help but rub his chin and think. His niece had gone up against the demons. Could it be that she wasn't at 100 Rivers City's heavenly pill dispensary? What if they went to 100 Rivers City and she wasn't there? Chapter 24:45. However, there was a voice in his heart telling him to go to the Nebula Immortal Sect. He had always heard from Yang Yang how powerful his niece was, but he had never seen it for himself. If he didn't go to the 100 River City's Heavenly Pill House and went to the Nebula Immortal sect instead, he might be able to take this opportunity to see if she was really that powerful. The more he thought about it, the more he wanted to go to the Nebula Immortal sect to watch the show. However, he was worried that if he changed his route and went to the Nebula Immortal sect, what would he do if he met another devil cultivator on the way? For a moment, he was in a dilemma. Seeing Feng Yi holding his chin with both hands and frowning, Zhao Yang asked, "What's wrong?" Feng Yi looked at him, thought for a moment and asked, "Yang Yang, do you think we should change our route and go to the Nebula Immortal sect to watch the show? The demons and the Nebula Immortal sect are fighting, the scene must be very big. Why don't we go and take a look?" Hearing this, Zhao Yang's face tensed up and said, "I think we should go to the 100 River City." "But, didn't you say that my niece is very powerful?" "I haven't seen her before, I want to go and take a look. Besides, if we go to the 100 River City now, I don't think she'll be there." Although Feng Yi knew that this was very dangerous, he was still a child after all. Under the temptation of being able to see his legendary niece fight, he was still a little irrational. Zhao Yang looked at him and saw that he was looking at him with anticipation. He knew that although Feng Yi was younger than him, if he had decided on something, even if he didn't agree, he would be able to persuade him to agree. Seeing this, he lowered his head and thought for a moment. After a long while, he said, "What about the Thunderfire mercenaries? Should we let them go back? Or should we let them escort us to the Nebula Immortal sect?" Hearing Zhao Yang's words, Feng Yi's eyes lit up and he couldn't help but laugh. "I knew Yang Yang was the best." He wrapped his arms around his shoulders and said, "I think that with their strength, they can send us back to the 100 River City. However, if they send us to the Nebula Immortal sect, we might not be as lucky as last time. Why don't we pay them the rest of the remuneration and let them go? And go on our own. Go on our own." Zhao Yang frowned, but he was still a little worried. The two of us as children should be smaller targets. Even the demon cultivators probably won't notice us. What do you think? Feng Yi said excitedly. Zhao Yang. It's up to you. His objection was also invalid. Since he had already decided, then let him be. All right. Feng Yi's delicate little face instantly blossomed into a smile. He turned to look at the mercenaries who were eating at the other table and chuckled with a grin on his face. Chapter 2446. Yes, yes. Feng Yi nodded in response. That place has been in chaos recently, so it's not suitable for you two children to go there. Didn't you say that you have relatives in 100 River City? It's better to send you to 100 River City. No need, no need. Feng Yi waved his small hand and said, "We can go by ourselves. Moreover, we don't plan to take the main road, nor do we want to get close. We just want to watch from afar, so there won't be any danger." Seeing that he insisted on going to the Nebula Immortal sect, Su Yan was silent for a moment before saying, "Since that's the case, we'll send you there." Feng Yi blinked and said, "But since we've accepted the mission, we have to complete it. Even if you change your destination, we have to send you there safely." Su Yan did not give him the chance to speak. He stood up and turned to speak to his brothers behind him. When the mercenaries heard this, they nodded their heads in agreement. Letting the two children go to the territory of the Nebula Immortal sect by themselves was a bit unreasonable. Especially since they had received such a generous commission from him. Seeing this, Feng Yi did not say anything else. It was naturally better to have them protect him than to travel alone. However, he was indeed worried that if he encountered a devil cultivator again, the people of the Thunderfire mercenary group would all be killed. "I know a shortcut to get to the Nebula Immortal sect's territory. We'll rest here tonight and set off tomorrow morning," Su Yan said to Feng Yi and Feng Yi. "All right." Feng Yi nodded and said, "Then you can keep these commissions first." Hearing this, Su Yan didn't refuse and put away the commission. On this day, they first replenished their rations and sent someone to buy some medicine for treating knife wounds to protect themselves. The group of people rested for a night in the inn. Then, they set off on their journey the next morning as soon as the sky brightened. On the other side, the simple and unremarkable Feng Jiu arrived at the territory of the Nebula Immortal sect. She did not use the teleportation scroll to directly arrive at the entrance of the Nebula Immortal sect. Instead, she first walked around the area and set up some spirit formations. When she was resting on a tree, she heard some faint sounds. How strange, our Nebula Immortal sect originally didn't have that many formations and barriers around us. Why are we encountering so many formations on this trip with Martial Uncle? If it weren't for Martial Uncle watching over us, I'm afraid we would all be trapped in the array formation. I don't know who set it up, but those arrays aren't easy to break. I heard from Master that in order to guard against the demons, he has sent out many people to patrol the area. However, in the past few days, other than the formations and boundaries, we haven't seen anyone from the demons. Could there be a mistake in the information? The demons can't possibly pick a fight with our Nebula Immortal sect. Impossible, the source of this news can't be wrong. It said that the ghost Dr. Fingzhou from the 100 River City's Heavenly Pill building sent a letter to our sect. It can't be wrong. Speaking of this ghost Dr. Fingzhou, I heard that she is the demons mentioned by the old man of heavenly secrets. Furthermore, it is said that if we were to really fight against the demons, only this ghost Dr. Fingzhou would have the strength to fight against them. Chapter 2447. Fingzhou, who was leaning on a tree, heard the group of Nebula Immortal sect disciples talking about her not far away. She raised her eyebrows and watched leisurely. She didn't even know that the people outside had spread such rumors about her. Only she had the ability to fight against the Devil Lord. Wasn't that an exaggeration? Even though her current strength was at the Immortal Emperor level, she did not have the confidence to win against the Devil Lord. Otherwise, she would not have come here to help the people of Nebula Immortal sect to set up the array and barrier. However, these people were right about one thing. Ever since the news had spread, the demons had not appeared in the area around the Nebula Immortal sect. This was a little surprising. She reached into her space and took out a fruit to eat. When she heard the crisp sound of the fruit being chewed, she was stunned for a moment. The group of disciples from the Nebula Immortal sect were also stunned for a moment. Then, they quickly turned around and let out a stern shout. "Who is it?" Fingzhou ate the fruit and watched as a group of about 10 people under the lead of a middle-aged man quickly came to the tree she was at. They surrounded her and stared at her vigilantly. The middle-aged man in the lead was dressed in gray. He looked at the youth who was leisurely leaning on the tree and eating the fruit. He quietly sized him up and then cupped his fists and said, "Now that the territory of the Nebula Immortal sect is under martial law, how did young master come in?" The territory of the Nebula Immortal sect had activated a protective barrier. Moreover, every point was guarded by the sect's disciples. How did this youth appear here? Even though he was not a devil cultivator, but generally speaking, he should not have come here so quietly. Especially when there were so many arrays and barriers around the area. I walked in. Fingzhou leaned on the tree and ate the fruit. One hand was behind her head. Her handsome face carried a smile as she looked at the people below. "Do what you should do. Don't bother about me." Hearing this, the corners of the mouths of the people under the tree twitched. What did he mean by doing what they should do? They were the disciples in charge of patrolling. Moreover, this person's origin was unknown. How could they ignore him? This young master. Just as the middle-aged man was about to speak, he heard a commotion not far away. It seemed like someone had barged into some kind of array. They turned around and looked in that direction. They had not been there before. Could it be that there was also an array there? Martial uncle, I'll go take a look with third junior brother. A disciple said and was about to bring a man beside him. Be careful. The middle-aged man said. When he thought of the youth on the tree, he had already jumped down from the tree. Chapter 24:48. Unfortunately, she did not have enough materials to set up the demon trapping array, so she could only set it up at a certain distance. Hearing Fingzhou's words, the people from the Nebula Immortal sect were shocked. Demon cultivators. But the array in our area has been activated, and every entrance to the mountain is guarded by disciples. How could? At this point, the person who spoke paused and did not finish his sentence. If they were really demon cultivators, then they could enter this place because one of the disciples guarding the entrance must have been killed. If they were demon cultivators above the fairy realm, the demon trapping array would not be able to trap them for long, Fingzhou said slowly and looked at them. Why aren't you leaving? Are you waiting to be killed by demon cultivators? With your strength, you won't be able to deal with those demon cultivators. With just a glance, she could roughly estimate the strength of these people. The strongest was the middle-aged man whom these people called Martial Uncle. He had the strength of a beginner in the fairy realm, but he could not withstand an attack from a demon cultivator. Hearing this, the middle-aged man pondered for a moment and said to the disciples around him, "The rest of you, quickly return to the sect and report to the sect leader. Tell them that demon cultivators have sneaked in." As he spoke, he looked at Fingzhou and said, "Sir, it's dangerous here. Follow the disciples of our sect up the mountain." Fingzhou raised her eyebrows and looked at the middle-aged man. She said, "I'm not leaving. I've always liked crowds. It's good to stay and watch. However, if you don't leave now, you won't be able to leave." As she spoke, she looked ahead and saw a few demonic cultivators cursing furiously. The middle-aged man also saw that the demon cultivators had broken out of the array, and their strength was above the fairy realm. He immediately shouted to the disciples of the other sects, "Quickly leave. Go back and report." "But, Martial Uncle, you..." The disciples were worried. If they left, what would happen to Martial Uncle? With Martial Uncle's strength, how could he fight against those demon cultivators? "Quickly report to the sect leader. We will release a signal and ask the patrolling teams of the nearby sects to come and help." Two men wearing the robes of the Nebula Immortal sect said and signaled for the others to leave first. "Sir, quickly leave with us." Before leaving, they wanted to bring the man in green away so that he would not die for no reason. "You guys go back first. Also, tell that old man Hunyuan that I'm here." As Fingzhou spoke, he waved his hand and a wave of spiritual energy swept out, sending them dozens of meters away. The disciples who were sent away were shocked. This person's strength is extraordinary. Let's go. Let's go back and report this." As the disciples spoke, they gave the man in green a deep look before quickly leaving. The middle-aged man and the two men who stayed behind had been vigilantly staring at the devil cultivators who were walking towards them. They did not notice the scene where Fingzhou waved his hand and sent the disciples off. As a result, they were still nervous and apprehensive. They did not know that the man in green standing behind them was the ghost Dr. Fingzhou, whose strength could be said to be heaven-defying. Chapter 24:49. The people from the Nebula Immortal sect actually dared to set up such a formation to wait for us. Good. Very good. One of them said sinisterly, his bloodthirsty gaze fixed firmly on the few people in front of him. Fingzhou, who was standing behind them, noticed that other than the middle-aged man at the fairy realm who was still calm and composed, the bodies of the two disciples beside him had tensed up due to nervousness. Their hands that were holding onto their swords loosened and tightened several times. From time to time, they pursed their lips and the back of their robes were drenched in sweat due to nervousness. She smiled slightly and retracted her gaze from their bodies. Then, she turned to look at the devil cultivators who were walking towards them. Other than the devil cultivators at the front, there were 7 or 8 injured devil cultivators who walked out from behind them. It was obvious that they had been injured in the formation. Other than the 7 or 8 injured devil cultivators at the back, the people in front of them were all at the middle and peak of the fairy realm. This great disparity in strength caused the 3 people from the Nebula Immortal sect to reveal a grave expression. "Senior Uncle, I'm afraid that even if we send out a distress signal, the surrounding disciples will not be able to defend against these devil cultivators." Although the 2 male disciples had grave expressions, they could still see the situation clearly. They knew that even if they sent out a distress signal to the surrounding patrolling teams, they would only increase the number of deaths. "Let's fight. Even if we have to risk our lives, we have to fight. There's no need to send out a signal. The people in front are all at the fairy realm. There are even some at the peak of the fairy realm. The ones behind them are even at the nascent soul realm. Unless it's a peak master or an elder from the sect, any ordinary disciple who comes here will only die in vain." Fingzhou, who was behind them, raised her eyebrows and the corners of her mouth curled into a smile. "The people from the Nebula Immortal sect are not bad." She stood still and watched as the devil cultivators who were at the fairy realm and above suddenly attacked. The 4 devil cultivators who rushed forward did not have any weapons in their hands. Instead, they charged forward with claw-shaped claws. Perhaps to them, these few people were not worthy of them using their weapons to kill. That was true. If it was only the 3 people in front of her, then with the devil cultivator's strength, killing them would be as easy as flipping a hand. Furthermore, once the strong cultivator's pressure was released, they would not have a chance to fight even if they wanted to. However, wasn't she here? Things might be different now. A smile quietly blossomed from the corner of her lips as a dim light flashed across her clear eyes. When she saw that the 4 devil cultivators had released a powerful pressure to envelop them and were about to break their necks with their bare hands, she gently pinched with one hand and the air current in the air condensed between her fingers. As those people approached, she gently twisted her hand and the air current between her fingers instantly split into 4 sharp auras and attacked the 4 devil cultivators at lightning speed. The faces of the middle-aged man and the 2 disciples turned pale. Only at this moment did they realize that fighting to the death was just wishful thinking. The other party's strength was far above theirs. Once the powerful pressure enveloped them, it was like a huge mountain was pressing down on them, causing them to be unable to move. How could they still fight with their lives on the line? Chapter 2450. The 3 of them watched as the bodies of the 4 devil cultivators, who were charging towards them as if they were going to take their lives in the next moment, stiffened in an instant. Their eyes widened in disbelief as they looked in front of them in shock and horror. The 3 of them were stunned, and they could only feel their hearts beating wildly. The sound was so loud that it was as clear as if it had come from right next to their ears. It was only when they saw the 4 devil cultivators fall to the ground with a thud, blood flowing out of their mouths and their bodies twitching that they suddenly regained their senses. They looked in shock at the 4 devil cultivators' bleeding bodies, killed in a single blow. The 4 streaks of swift and fierce air currents that had swept past them had directly hit the 4 devil cultivators' fatal spots. It was so fast that it could be said to have traveled at the speed of light. Even the powerhouses at the peak of the fairy realm had no way of dodging it, and they had lost their lives. As the 4 devil cultivators died, the pressure that had enveloped them was lifted. They instinctively turned around and looked in shock at the ordinary-looking youth in green robes standing behind them. He. It was him who had instantly killed 4 fairy realm devil cultivators. Who on earth was he? How could he be so powerful? At this moment, the hearts of the few devil cultivators were filled with shock. They were so shocked that they could not utter a single word. They could only look in disbelief at the indifferent and leisurely youth. When the 7 or 8 devil cultivators who had been walking forward saw that the 4 devil cultivators in front of them had been killed, they could not help but be shocked. They stopped in their tracks and stared warily at the middle-aged man in gray robes in front of them. From their point of view, only this fairy realm devil cultivator in grey robes was capable of exchanging blows with the fairy realm devil cultivators. However, what was with the dazed look on his face? Why was he staring at the azure-robed man behind him with a face full of shock? Only the remaining cultivator at the peak of the fairy realm took a step back when he saw this scene. He stared warily at the man in green robes standing behind them and asked in a cold voice, "Who are you?" As there were only 4 devil cultivators in front of him, he did not attack. However, he did not expect that the 4 fairy realm devil cultivators would be instantly killed by this youth. With such strength and skills, he was definitely not an ordinary person. "What are you still standing there for? Don't you want to fight them?" Fingio ignored the flying immortal devil cultivator and asked the people who were staring at her in a daze. When they heard Fingio's words, they quickly regained their senses. After stabilizing their minds, they circulated the spiritual energy in their bodies and charged forward with their swords in hand. They were no match for the flying immortal realm cultivator. Thus, the 2 disciples swept past the flying immortal realm cultivator and attacked the devil cultivator behind him, while the grey-robed middle-aged man faced the flying immortal realm devil cultivator. Fingio didn't move as the 3 of them fought. Instead, he stayed behind to help. Just as the demonic cultivator was about to strike down one of the disciples with his sword, a gust of wind struck him, and the demonic cultivator collapsed. With Fingio's help, the 3 of them were not injured at all. They easily dealt with the 7 or 8 people. When the remaining demon cultivator at the fairy realm tried to escape, he was killed by Fingio. Looking at the corpses on the ground, the 3 people from the sect were excited. Just as they were about to turn around and talk to the young man, they saw that he had already bent down and looted all the valuables on the devil cultivator.